Hello, hello, hello! How's everyone doing today? How's everyone doing in chat? How everyone? It's Friday night! Yeah, weekend's over, week's over, weekend's starting. Best time of the week. The weekend. Is Friday night a weekend or a week? Do you consider Friday night the weekend or the week? Or do is it like an hourly thing, or we just kind of roll with it? It's that waning period between the two. But either way, it's a good time right now. Tonight's stream, awesome. So instead of print and chill, the printers are silent because we have a guest tonight. We have ModBot, Daniel. He's our guest tonight. So before we get to that though, shout out to Polymaker. As always, we get to give away a spool of filament per stream. Enter in the description. Link is there. So don't forget that. We'll draw that at the end of the stream. But back on topic. Tonight we have a guest. We have ModBot. Daniel, he's been on YouTube for, I forgot to check. You've been on for a while. We'll get you there, but it hasn't always been 3D printing. But yeah, we'll start there. So let me pull him in here and push some buttons so we can actually hear him. So you should be live now and you should be on screen there. So there's ModBot, Daniel.
What's going on? Hi, everybody.
So,
what's going on?
yes.
Happy Friday.
So hopefully all the audio levels are okay. If they are not, just yell at me in chat because of course it's all thrown together at the last minute as per normal.
Of course.
But yeah, for those that don't know, ModBot, can you give us who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Daniel. I typically go by ModBot or Daniel. I've been making YouTube videos for over a decade at this point now. It started off as a completely different thing, and the channel name was Dopes Oner back then. It was a random high school name I chose for myself when I didn't think that I was going to be making YouTube videos. And then about 6-ish years ago, I think at this point, I rebranded. But yeah, the channel started off as video game hacking and modding stuff, and then I got my first 3D printer in 2014, which was supposed to be just a sort of tool for a current job that I was working on. And then I became completely obsessed with it, gave up on all of the video game hacking and modding stuff, and the channel from that point forward quickly shifted to a pretty much full 3D printing channel. So yeah, I've been doing videos on there consistently for quite a long time, but for the last 2.5 years, there's been a video every single Saturday. And then starting in August or September of last year, I started a second channel, ModBot Army, where it's very similar, but the difference is that ModBot Army is all live streams. We live stream every Wednesday at noon Pacific Standard Time, and it's either builds or hanging out or unboxing printers, still all 3D printing stuff, but more of a live engagement type thing. Definitely modeled after sort of what Nero does with the hangout and chill and 3D printing type of thing. And it's been a lot of fun and a really cool way to sort of engage with the community more so than you get from a static comment section in a YouTube video. So that's sort of the grand bit about myself and kind of what I do.
Yeah, that's one thing. I've popped into a few other streams and they've been fun, but you didn't start as a 3D printing guy, if I'm not mistaken. You've been doing the YouTube game for a bit now, haven't you?
Yeah, when it started off, one of the main differences is when I started making YouTube videos in 2010, I never had planned on being a YouTuber or a content creator. It was like, I'm bored, I graduated high school in 2010, I had a lot more free time than I did with homework and stuff like that, and so I just got into video game, like specifically Xbox 360 repairs and hacking. At the time I was working, my first job when I was 17 was working at McDonald's. I had to get a job. My buddy down the street worked there and said, hey, I can get you a job. So I said, cool, I'll take a job. I need a job. And I did not like working at McDonald's. It was a very difficult job. And I mean, obviously like there was no money. It was a minimum wage job, my first job. And while I was working there, I bought a Xbox off of somebody off Craigslist, which I would imagine you guys have in Canada as well, just like local listings.
Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace are kind of...
Okay, yeah, same type of thing. Local people selling things and buying things type thing. And so the guy that was selling an Xbox ended up living about a mile away from me. I walk into his garage and it's just like hundreds of Xboxes and like crazy things happening. And being like, I think I was 17 at the time, I was like, what, who are you? Like, I was expecting like some guy getting rid of his Xbox, and he told me that, yeah, like he repairs Xboxes full time and mods them and stuff like that. And so instantly my brain is just like blown away. And it was me talking to him was definitely like the hamster on the wheel situation where I went home, started studying, like going through forums, going through different online. YouTube didn't have nearly as much of this sort of educational style content back then. It was still a lot of like the early days of like cat videos, PewDiePie, like small skits, stuff like that. And so when I learned how to fix like the Red Ring of Death, or when I learned how to install a mod chip, I just decided like, I'm gonna make a video on it. This was really sucky to do because the information wasn't accessible. And I'll post a video, maybe someone won't have to spend their whole week going through forums, digging through jargon. And a comment rolled in, said, thanks, like, thank you, this really helped me. And I was like, wow, that's cool, I did help somebody. So that was sort of the initial thing. And then I kind of, as the comments came in, I was like, okay, I'll do another one. This seems interesting, I'll do that. And then it just sort of became this thing. And then at the time, I was looking up to a lot of the tech YouTubers, like Marquise, gosh, it's been a lot of years. Yeah, Techno Buffalo at the time was someone that I was following. Obviously, like Casey Neistat, like, I mean, any Unbox Therapy, any of those guys that were doing the like tech stuff, I was like, that's really cool. And so the channel started off kind of as a video game hacking tech thing, video game playing. And then, yeah, it wasn't until 2014 when I got my first 3D printer, which was for a modding project. I was like, cool, I can make way better case mods with a 3D printer than a freaking Dremel. That I bought, that I bought a 3D printer. And then after that, when I got it home, I never did the projects I initially set out to do.
That's kind of, I still have the Iron Man helmet somewhere. One day I'll get that done. One day.
I saw you talking about that the other day, the iron. Yeah, it's funny. I had this great idea of what I wanted to do. And then a little bit too was not having a background in this stuff. I thought that it's going to be so easy. I'll get this magic box and I'll make this thing. And, once you get it and you're like, what is leveling? What is a slicer? What is all these different things? And so, yeah, the learning curve was brutal. The first printer I got was the DaVinci 1.0, and it was absolute junk. Like it just didn't work for me. I got one print out of it, then something failed with a thermistor, and I got no support. And so my first 3D printer, when I got it, actually, I gave up on 3D printing. I tried to get it working, couldn't get it working.
Yeah, the
so
DaVincis, if I remember, they were pretty locked down. They were a pretty proprietary
majorly,
printer.
Majorly.
Because I got in.
Down. Yep.
Oh yeah, proprietary spools. I got in after you, both actually. Oh god, 4 years after, because I got in like late 2017, 2018. Yeah. So that's you were the generation before me in 3D printing with like the really basic, the old
man.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was scrappy back then.
Yeah, like, I had a friend at work. Like I got into it long after I had heard about it. I had heard about it and then just didn't end up getting into it for like 6 years because buddy at work had the Rod Prusa Mendel. Like he drilled out a brass plug for his nozzle. Like first gen DIY.
That's before me. That's like the generation before, the real early days of all
back in the day.
Like everything was acrylic or everything was laser cut wood at that time. I don't think I would have gotten into it had it not been that I was visiting a good friend's house and he had a guy named Daniel that was living with him at the time, and the dude was rad, man. He was probably 8 years older than me, and he was a videographer, like beautiful. I mean, I was making my YouTube videos at the time, but compared to like his crazy music sets he was going to, all these crazy tours in like Vegas and stuff he was going to. And so I started talking to him about video stuff, and he was, once I got the hamster on his wheel, he started, spit back and forth. And then I went into his room to check out his like gimbal type stuff that he had. And I look in the corner and I see a box that just says 3D printer, DaVinci 1.0. And that was the catalyst for all of this, was basically me looking over saying, what is that? And then he showed me like kind of this simple wheel that he had made. I said, no way you made that with this box. There's no way.
Yeah, those simple prints that are just like the screw or the ball in the square have gotten so many people into 3D printing. And now that you're involved, you're like, whatever. But like that's like the little taste of it.
It doesn't take a
sample.
lot for me to get super excited. Like if it's something that I think that I'll have interested in, all you have to do is light that spark or like ignite that match,
Yep.
and then it's just, So yeah, I went home and then I started researching as much as I could. Saw the machine, saw new eggs, sold them, saved up. Excuse me, saved up all my money from my minimum wage job and saved up my birthday money, and then for Christmas that year, so December of 2014 is when I went and bought it, drove out there because they have will call, picked it up and drove it home. And that was, if it wasn't for him, and he doesn't even, well, he did get back into it. He gave up on 3D printing for many years and pursued a kind of a different direction. But if it wasn't for him, I don't know that I would have gotten into it. I don't know how I would have been introduced into it. So like, I'm incredibly thankful that even if he didn't stick with it throughout the whole time, that he had that box and was able to explain it in a way where I'm like, yeah, that sounds like magic. I need to be a part of that,
Yeah, somebody's putting in the comments there, COVID lockdown was the beginning for 3D printers for him. And I guess that was my channel. So with you started with tech. With me, my channel is from 2006, I think. There's World of Warcraft videos from way back then. Yep. But it was just a personal YouTube channel. And then all of a sudden, started getting involved in 3D printing. You do the odd little tutorial video here and there. Then COVID lockdown started, and then I was like, you know what? I'll start streaming. I got nothing else to do, and here we are now.
A lot of people started up their hobbies.
You started with the Da Vinci.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you don't have that one no more.
I don't. I part of me wishes I did, just as like sort of like luckily there's YouTube videos of me unboxing and stuff like that, so I can look back and get the whole nostalgia or the angry feelings.
Yeah,
but I don't. It was a pretty heavy, chunky machine, and since then I've moved 4 times, and it just wasn't ideal to keep transferring. But that machine, thankfully, I had the willpower to get back into it, because basically after it broke and after I had issues with getting a hold of them, I put it in my closet for probably 4 to 6 months and said, I tried, 3D printing is not there yet, whatever. But throughout that whole time, I'm still on the RepRap forums, I'm still digging around on the Da Vinci forums, seeing what people are doing with theirs, how are theirs breaking. And that's when I discovered that there's a 3D printing modding scene, just like I was doing with video games. People are hacking up their 3D printers. And so it started off with a guy that was reflashing the cartridges to make it where, hey, I'm out of filament, flash it, cool, I'm full of filament, you can load in third-party stuff and print again. So I was like, okay, there's hacky stuff on this. And then
I am so glad I did not have to deal with that.
It was brutal, dude. Like flashing I think it was like an EEPROM. Like there was a guy selling an actual product, but there was also a way where you can sort of make your own little pogo pin type setup. But then I discovered ramps, and I discovered what Arduino was, and I discovered Repetier firmware. So I basically ripped their brain out of it, and having never done anything with steppers or drivers, I did it all. And it took me months. Like I probably blew out 2 ramp boards. I remember plugging it in saying, this is the time. And then the magic smoke came out. And I'm just like, oh God, thank God these things are $8.
The magic pixies got out. You got to put the blue smoke
exactly.
back in. I know the very first time I played with a BL Touch, the machine worked, and then I rebuilt it and I rewired it up exactly the same way, and it blew up.
Interesting.
I totally rewired it the exact same way.
Yeah, you didn't flip the header? There's no chance?
No. It's just, cosmic rays and Saturn, and yeah. I think anyone who's filled with 3D printers, built them, has blown up a ramps at some point, I think.
Oh, yeah. So the thing is, too, considering how jank they were and how there wasn't really a standard, I was getting some from eBay, some from Amazon, wherever I could source them from. I don't actually know how many of the Magic Smoke ones were my fault and how many of them were just, like C4. Like the second I plugged it in, there was time to detonate. I don't know. But the first time I got it to turn on and home, I just remember, it was the Shazah! I can do it! It was freaking victorious, man. And then from then it was back on the, finally breaking off the what is it on a bicycle? You have training wheels, and I was ready to ride the bike around. And then it was, the next one was a kit printer, which was a Fulgur Tech 2020, which was my first bed slinger. The reason why I was stoked on it was aluminum frame, which wasn't really a thing back then on Precious. Yep. They were, or i3, they were all acrylic or all laser cut wood, and I loved that they were aluminum. And it was affordable, and it was the company's based out of Jersey. Granted, a lot of the parts were from overseas, but they were at least a company here where I knew if something went wrong, I could send an email and hopefully, someone would reply. And that was, I tried to Nero that build where I tried to do it all in one stream, like you did on the 0.1.
Yeah,
dude, it was
a little bit of advice. Don't, no.
Yeah, I never. When you did it, just knowing what it's like to build a full printer in one day, and after doing the 0.1 off camera for my first build, there's no way in hell I could. I don't think I'm capable of it, but there's no way I would put myself through that, like, just that level of focus and concentration for so long. But the first build took me 13 hours, and the time I decided to end it was when I had the plug plugged into the wall. I didn't realize I had it plugged into the wall, and I had the wires in my hand, and it arced in front of me, and it's on. You can still see it. I have the video. Like, I can timestamp it later. It's very crappy. It was like an early Logitech webcam that was looking down on me.
Oh.
My heart. I just grab my heart and I say, like, okay, I think
we're done for today.
Yeah.
Mains voltage going spark is well, just watch the intro to this live stream. It's there.
Yep. I talked about it one time when someone said, "Oh, like Nero," and I was like, "Wait, Nero did that?" And then they said your intro, and I was like, "Oh, that's right. I've totally seen this happen."
That was me completely having my brain turn off and go, I'm just gonna measure the 24 volts across the mains on this power supply. Yeah, because the wires were going in, right? And the wires are where the power is, so I'm gonna
I don't feel like you can be held well, you can be held responsible. I don't think you can be held fully responsible after being streamed. Like, there's no way my brain was even near half capacity at that point. Like, I was just wanting to be able to have that successful feeling on stream. And the new rule I have is if I'm getting really tired, I've got to call it, especially if I'm dealing with anything that's electrical. It's just, it's a recipe for disaster,
If you put something together wrong, you can just, undo it, put it back. You have a set screw loose. That's an easy fix. That doesn't really, you might have a layer shift or the print might not work. But when it comes to electrical and wiring, you really don't want to fiddle with that when you're sleep deprived or not in the right state of mind.
Yeah, so that was a major learning experience, and I think that from that point and then going through this whole era of semi-assembled printers, it was like getting into the Voron stuff was a major nostalgia to like the good old days of 3D printing where you just got nuts, bolts. The thing I will say though is that you have community now and you have much better documentation than the missing thing that they called documentation back when I was ordering from like G-Tech in 2015 or ANET from 2015. Like, the instructions were just so poor back then. So but yeah, the Voron stuff was definitely like a trip down memory lane. I'm like, man, we got really spoiled with these printers that are 2 volts.
You got into Voron after we figured out documentation. Like, it wasn't always that good. Like, the original V1 to like V1.5 were actually pretty good with manuals, but when I got in, I built a V1.5. So I started with a Monoprice Select Mini back in late 2017. And then probably within 2 months of getting it, I realized this thing is way too small to really do anything with. So I started looking into mods. So I was like, there's bigger bed mods and bigger Z mods. But the printer is like all stamped sheet metal and whatnot. So it's not like, extruded aluminum where you can just kind of put longer extrusions. No, you were very limited on how you could expand it. And it was, to be honest, pretty janky in the way people were doing it. So I ended up I literally went on, /r/reprap on YouTube or on Reddit. Yeah. Sort by all and went, show me what you got. And like the third post down was the original V0, like the V01 or the V1.0. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. And then I ended up finding like the subreddit and then the Slack group and then built a V1.5. And then I built a V2, which the V2 had no documentation at all. It had you had a file, you downloaded a folder, it had all the STLs.
Was it a 3D model that you were just using in like Fusion? Like,
no. You had the STLs. You had a community bomb that somebody who had previously built the printer kind of just estimated screw count, and then there was a 3-minute YouTube video showing off the printer, and that was how the original people built the V2. The first no manual, no CAD for the first first 40 Voron serials for V2s for V2.0 had no manual. There was never a manual for the V2, and there was never an officially released CAD.
Oh gosh. So,
yeah,
that sounds brutal. What year was that then? So you said you got into 2017. Okay, so like right.
Gotcha. So Voron's from, if I'm not mistaken, like it was about, I think the first one was 2016, because we did the 5-year last year, I think.
I don't know how I hadn't heard, considering how deep I've been in the 3D printing realm and like scouring the interweb. Like, I don't know how I had not heard of Voron up until 0.1 roughly. Like, that's really about
when it blew up. If you look, somebody made a chart a while ago of the serial numbers, because that's one of the things we have serial, so we can keep track of how many Vorons are out there. And I built my first V1 in 2018, so like 2 years after the V1s came out, and I was serial number 100. I built and now we're in the, I think we're 6,500 serials total now.
Insane. Across the
the chart's just like this. So up until really the because the V01, the V01, V1.8, and V2.4 were all announced on the same day, which was, it was originally supposed to be MRF 2020, and then the Rona kind of canceled that.
Yeah.
Because we can't have nice things due to global pandemics. Yay.
Yeah.
But
hey, but you started streaming though, man. You know.
Yeah.
Like, so
I started in May. I just did 2 years of streaming. But yeah,
the videos started in COVID or the Rona time because I was
a lot of people got into 3D because everyone had their vacation budgets and whatever that they couldn't spend on stuff. Like, oh, I guess I'll get into 3D printing or something. But that is when Voron blew up. So before then, there was never really, because it was never promoted. It's an open source project. There's no company. Now there's companies involved because everyone's making money off it except the team. But back then it was a lot more niche. There was a subreddit and a Slack group, and then that became a Discord group.
I can't believe I didn't see it on like Thingiverse or something like that, because there was
nothing's
like
on Thingiverse.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. If it was, I would have seen it, because there was quite a few. Like the first Core XY machines I remember were projects on Thingiverse. I can't think of the names are slipping my mind right now.
FuseBot. I originally so when the monoprice select meeting, when I realized that was way too small and I wasn't going to mod it. Thingiverse, it was Hypercube Evo.
Hypercube
and
was the one, the main one I remember.
The Fusebox were like the two I was looking at, and then I ended up going with Voron.
The Hypercube is one of the main ones I remember, and then there's another guy that, man, his channel's like T something and some numbers. He's from Australia, I believe.
Tech2C?
Australian guy?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was the Hypercube guy. Was he the Hypercube guy?
Oh, maybe, because I remember watching his stuff, and he almost convinced me a few times to build it. I really enjoyed his content. The prints were cool, and I thought he was super innovative. He also developed a small 3D printable drone that I thought was really cool too. But had Voron been on Thingiverse, I certainly would have found it. I don't, like, for as online as I've been and how many forums I've been involved with, for some reason I didn't really Reddit hard until a couple of years ago. So like, that's probably why I didn't, like the RepRap forums I was on a bit, but not the RepRap Reddit. So yeah, I just didn't see it. And then I think it was around the time that Stefan from CNC Kitchen made his video on the V0.1, where I had seen like
massive for us.
Yeah,
like that's what blew the gates open for like people.
I believe it,
because he was the first big YouTuber to actually show it off or whatever, and then that that hundreds of thousands of views later.
I had seen snippets of it from some of the people I followed on Twitter prior, like, oh, there's this cute little Core XY printer, and like it's hard to get a idea of how special the Voron 0.1 is without seeing like a really good video on it or having one in front of you. Like, it's just like, cool, it's a mini Core XY, but like, you're like, no, like, it's so much more than that though. Yeah, and so I think that...
We got a Micron here.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah.
I think that it was Stefan's video that cemented it for me, that I was like, oh my God, like, it's not only is it adorable, it won't take up a ton of space, which has always been an issue for me. It's a Core XY, which is the like kinematic system that I'm least familiar with, and I've been wanting to learn more about it and get used to it. It's got Clipper, like which I hadn't touched at that point either, and I was like, there's so much. Like, I feel that I can challenge myself and learn with it, which is always a goal, is to learn more and make yourself more knowledgeable. And so that was sort of the, like, I'm going to be doing this thing. And then I found your channel either close before that or close after. I was like, okay, this guy knows all the things about Vorons. And so I started watching streams, and that's when I probably pinged or I don't remember how the first time we chatted, but
it was on Twitter, I think.
Okay, yeah, it was probably on Twitter, but I got so excited that I instantly just hopped over to the BOM and just ordered all the parts. And that was also part of the reason why when I do my summary video on the Voron and I talk about self-sourcing, I ran into so many issues because I sort of like the excitement, I should have strategically ordered all things for 0.1. I was like, I need this mini thing. Like,
it used to be a lot better back in the days for self-storage, because you got in just when kits started to become a thing, I believe.
Yep.
So for the longest time, up until about, around when the V01 came out. So roughly around the 2020, March, April, May, June, like that point. That's when kits really started appearing. Because before that, you had to self-source. But before that, pretty much everything on AliExpress had free shipping at the time. So you would order everything. It would take like 3 months to show up, but the price wasn't that bad. But then Rona hit. COVID hit, and everything free shipping went away. The prices all went up, and then self-sourcing kind of became really not worth it at that point, because why would I pay all these shipping fees when I could just buy from one person, swap out the odd part? Now, kits back then had their own issues. Believe me, you should have seen some of the stuff people posted on the Discord.
I watched your early videos, some of them where you were sort of like, I wouldn't say you were like saying bad things about kits, but you were certainly like warning people that, hey, like if you're getting a kit,
kits where a 110 volt came with a 220 volt VED and vice versa. Under spec wiring, wrong type of wiring, like low strength, not high strength.
Not just wrong, but like dangerous
V-wheel or extrusions, V-slot extrusions. A whole kit with V-slot extrusions. NEMA or MGN9 does not work on V-slot.
No.
It doesn't sit on V-slot. So kits with that, you name it. It was just somebody looked at the bomb and just kind of went down the aisle on AliExpress and threw stuff in a cart and got what you got. They've come a long way. Kits have come a long way. But a lot of the people still in the community still harp the self-source and whatnot. And then now you have kits like the LDO kits, which are pretty much as close to like a Prusa style plug-and-play kit as you can get now. Which those are the only ones I'll safely recommend, simply for you're not doing your own wiring, because it's hard to recommend to somebody that you don't know, buy this kit and good luck on the wiring, hope you know how to crimp, because you don't know everyone's skill level.
I never crimped before the V0.1. Like, I owned a set of crimpers. I think I had attempted to crimp, and I didn't realize the level of crimping. And then I also did the umbilical mod or whatever, which required a ton of crimping. And so I always thought that I just sucked at crimping. I always thought that I just was terrible at crimping. And it was, oh no, his name is slipping my mind right now. Oh, he's in, I feel really bad if he's watching right now, but Voron 0.1, he is in the Discord on the right-hand side, something workshop, or, it's gonna bug me if I can't find his,
Detlev, there is no glory in self-sourcing. It used to be back in the day, it was really recommended simply for the quality. Like back for a while, you couldn't do anything but self-source. And then the first few runs of kits had issues. Now self-sourcing, unless you already have stuff on hand, it really isn't worth it, because you can buy a FormBot kit, swap out the sketchy SSR and the bed mat, and still make it out ahead. So it's a lot better than it used to be. It's just a lot of people repeat what they were told when they joined the community 3 years ago. So that's why you kind of see that echo chamber effect a lot, unfortunately.
Greg's Maker Corner is what it is, and I apologize, Greg, if you're in the chat, because I'm terrible with names. Like, faces I'll always remember, but in the moment, especially anyone that sees me on stream, I'll forget things all the time. But he was the one that has recommended multiple tools, either in his videos or just on Twitter when I'm asking questions. That man has never led me astray. He was the one that said, get the PA09s. I got the PA09s, and suddenly I don't suck at crimping. I'm actually like okay at crimping.
Yeah,
and so
I spent way too much on mine, because mine were like, I bought off like Amazon Japan or something, and like
same thing, right? They look like the red engineers.
Well, mine are red. Mine are the older ones.
Yeah, old school.
Red. But honestly, these things they've built. I did the math how many Vorons these things have built, and it's like, well, let's see, because I've rebuilt some of these, so that like that one's been rebuilt 4 times. So it's what is V1 or M4. Like 8 or 9 Vorons with this, plus V-Minion and a bunch of other custom printers. So yeah, these have paid for themselves in time save versus like the crappy crimpers.
Yep.
Buy good crimpers, because you'll
100%.
just never need another set. Just go buy them. Just don't buy that $2.99 ratcheting one that everyone buys off AliExpress. Let me go find it. Where is it? These ones. These ones. Everyone has bought these ones.
Yep.
Right?
I own those.
And they're garbage.
They're really bad. Man.
They are garbage, but they're $2.99. I built my first Voron with these, and never again.
Every time I thought I had a good crimp, I would release it, like clamp it all the way down so it would release, and then I would pull on it, and it would just slip off of it.
Yep.
I was like, oh god. So, yeah, the PA09s have been instrumental in me being able to. But I will say that even with that, I have no problem with the DuPont or JST style connectors. The ones that still get me are the ones that are on the umbilical cord mod. They are something 2.0. They're called Microfit 2.0. I think is like the style that they are potentially.
Because I've used Microfit 3.0, but I haven't used.
Maybe they're 3.0. I don't know. They're really long. They're incredibly long, and there is a ton of points on them. And so just when I got those in, I was looking at it and I was like, okay, this is different. There's more things going on. And so it's been working fine. Every once in a while, the thermistor on my V0.1 original one will throw an error, and I have to like push it down a little bit more to get it.
Just go fix it. Pull it out, recrimp it.
Yeah,
fix it right.
well, I'm going to. I just ordered a bunch of. I just ordered a bunch of stuff for it. I'm actually like, it's going to get pretty well, a pretty big rebuild with like an LGX Lite, a clicky just for the hell of it because I want to see what it's like. A belted
I've got two running clicky now, and then I got the unclicky too that I got to put together and play with. But
yeah, Dustin told me about the unclicky, and it's supposed to be really repeatable from
it is
what I've
apparently.
Seen. Yeah.
I still need to play with it, but I do have the hardware for it. But I do in the LDO V2, the 300 V2. It makes sense to have clicky, but in my Micron, having a stowable bed mesh probe in a printer this big, it's a little bit of overkill.
I'm doing it more for the memes, like just because it's probably going to happen to the Switchfire eventually. Like, I know that similar to you, when you build a kit, you like to build it stock to get a feel for it. Well, with this scenario, I also wanted to build it completely stock, but like long-term game plan is stealth burner, clicky as a bare minimum, and then when I do build the ERCF, throwing that on top of there as well. But I did want to build it as is. Just from everyone I've talked to that's in Voron or has been in building Vorons for a while, everybody swears by the clicky. Like, they're just... because there's no, like, pretty much everyone says that the sensor works great for most scenarios, but if you do a ton of like heat soaking type thing, then that's when there can be some deviation in terms of like the bed, or whatever, like the sensor. So far it's been fine. I haven't really had any issues, but I still can understand why mechanical, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be the exact same as long as it's not bent, or something like that.
Yeah, I for most people, like new builds, for somebody who's never built a printer, I still recommend the probe because the manual and all the default configs and everything are set up for it.
Work for it, yeah.
And then it's easy. It's actually not that hard to add the clicky at a later date. So get the printer up and running.
Yep.
I'm a very if it ain't broke, don't fix it type person. So if there's a known good option, build it stock first, and then if you think you have issues, try the things that fix it. Because a lot of the time, there's tons of mods out there for the Voron that fix issues that very few people actually have.
Yeah. Totally.
And there's a lot of people think you need certain mods right off the bat. You don't in a lot of use cases, like clicky. I have bed probes that have survived 3 years of use that still work perfectly fine. And I have perfect first layers. And and that's on V226 here using a rice cooker switch, like the original V2.0's Z switch, which is like way not reliable apparently, but I still get perfect first layers on that machine after years. So it comes down to just luck of the draw sometimes with stuff like the probes, because they used to be a lot better, but then they switched, like the cases, they all melt now apparently, but that's because the cases used to be polycarbonate and then they switched to make them out of ABS.
Gotcha.
So it's just kind of luck of the draw, luck on your sourcing that day. It's what it is.
Yeah. The one, I made a video probably a year ago on, I think it was like top 5 tips for like new people into 3D printing. And one of the things was that I love modding things. I get it. A lot of us do. Like, not everyone in 3D printing loves modding. It's, you can't put a shoe on everyone, but like a lot of us that are here in this chat or this stream, like we like playing around with things, we like building things. And so I understand that. The problem I've seen multiple times is, hey, I bought this printer and I bought these mods with it and I added these mods to it and this is happening or that's happening. I say, okay, well, like, did you have issues with it before? I don't know. I just installed it right away. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't know if it was defective from factory or something. So no, I'm also, I mean, there are a few people that have told me when I was building the V0.1, when I was looking to do some mods down the road, hey, just do it now because the V0.1 is tough to take apart and you're gonna have to really disassemble it. And there might be certain scenarios, but generally speaking, I think that use it stock and make sure everything works as intended, and then like go, ham on it if you want to or something like that. But yeah, I've seen countless times of, hey, I installed this thing, I flashed this firmware, and now this is happening. Well, did it do anything like that with the stock firmware? I don't know, I got it, took it home, unboxed it, plugged it in, flashed it, and here we are. I'm like,
yep. There has been many a help ticket on the Voron Discord of somebody who, the ticket has gone on much longer because they went and modded it right off the gate, and the issue was the mod the whole time because something was wrong with that. It's a lot harder to diagnose a problem when there's more variables. So when you go and mod it right out of the gate, like even like whenever you see somebody buy an Ender 3 or like one of the cheap entry-level printers and it's like must do mods, it's like, no, you should make sure your printer works first before you go start swapping stuff out.
I still, even myself, will do that to this day. Like I think when I spoke to you, I said I picked up an Ender 3 Pro recently because I needed it for a modding project. And even but myself, before modding it, I assembled it. I printed a tiny little calibration cube. Cool. X and Y is working. Extruder's working. Hot end heats up. Great. I can move on. But like as a bare minimum, run a print or two just to confirm that it's
make
not
sure
defective.
At least it's working.
Yeah. I mean, good luck modding it and trying to get any sort of warranty thing. Not saying you would get warranty coverage as is, but good luck modding it and then trying to, so yeah, I definitely am all on board with that, certainly. And then there are times as well, like there's a couple of printers here that I've been wanting to mod for a while, but it's a similar situation where it's like, man, they're like kind of purring along fairly well. Do I want to? Do I want to? Like, yes, it's cool. Yes, I maybe can do a little bit more with it, but it's like there have certainly been times where I decide to do the mod and then I do something silly and now I can't even get it back to where it was before. Like, even myself. So that's
what happened with my Monoprice Select Mini. That's what did my Monoprice Select Mini in, because it was the original Monoprice Select Mini used one fan for both the fan duct
and the
for part cooling and print cooling. And I had modded it with a 4020 Noctua, because everyone back then said use a Noctua because they're quiet. They're actually horrible for part cooling because they got no static pressure.
Mine as well. I swapped out the hot end for a V6. I had the Monoprice Mini as well. And
okay, I had the V2, so I had like the V5 hot end that didn't need the full swap. But
maybe that's what I had as well.
What ended up happening was it wasn't working right, and I was fiddling with it, and I ended up shorting the MOSFET. So that because I was going to try and make it like tie in the one fan and then have a second fan. And I was fiddling with it because it was like, it was working fine. And I'm like, no, I want to get more out of it. And I ended up blowing up the MOSFET, which meant that the hot end fan and part cooling fan was always on 100%. And after that, I kind of put it to the side. And then, that was like the last time I used it. I went back to it a couple years later to try and like resurrect it. And it was done.
It was
the parts live on in the bonsai. That was like the recommended printer, because that was like the cheap entry level printer for a bit. It was like it was just before like the Ender 3 really came about, I think.
It was assembled basically. It also had a heated bed. Back then, heated beds were not a standard. My first printer, well, that's not true. DaVinci had it, but I've owned printers without a heated bed because they used to be like, it's not needed for PLA. Put down blue painter's tape and hairspray it and whatever. So yeah, the fact that it had a heated bed, was assembled, and was fairly rigid compared to a lot of the like printers that were built on stilts back then. I had some pretty good results with it, and I also, if I recall, I also broke my Monoprice Select Mini. One of my most popular 3D printing videos back then was, I think it's titled 3 mods and upgrades for Monoprice Select Mini or whatever. So like there was clearly an audience.
I probably watched that video because that printer had a pretty dedicated group to it back when I got into it.
It was
because it was like the common entry level cheap printer, and it's funny that like cheap entry level printers get huge communities around them. Because everyone, you need support.
Totally, yeah, you need support, and also I think that like from an outsider's perspective, like any hobby in general, right? Like for example, right now, like I'm thinking I really want to get a drone, and I'm probably not going to get like a kit drone. I'm probably just going to go and buy. DJI just announced their new like Mini 3 Pro, and with us moving, I'm like I want to get a drone of like the cool landscape and stuff. But anyways, when you're outside of a hobby or community looking inward, it's really overwhelming. Like you don't know where to look. You don't know what's factual, what's just like old.
There's
not
so much. I remember back in the day watching a video where it was somebody showing you how to calibrate E-steps from your extruder by measuring the thickness of your first layer.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
I could see the thought behind it though, because maybe they're thinking, wait, no, I can't. Exactly. There is so much weird tribal knowledge in 3D printing that has kind of arose over the years. But I remember watching a video on that where somebody was showing you he printed like a square first layer, he peeled it off the bed, and then he measured it, and that's how he calibrated his E-steps. That's awesome. I'm glad I didn't follow that video. I haven't seen it, but I will say that every niche has that though, because when I said I started making videos on Xbox repairs and modding, the videos that I was seeing at that point were, if you have the red ring of death, go find a towel and wrap it in a towel and turn it on.
I remember that. I never had an Xbox and I remember that.
Or take an ear swab, shove it in the fan port in the back, you want it to overheat and it'll reflow itself and then you'll be good to go. That was the information that was like, I mean, talking hundreds of thousands of views on it. And I'm like, yes, you might be heating the cracks ever so slightly, but you're overheating your RAM, you're overheating everything that's not meant to be overheated. And so when I finally, and I never got like, I don't have a background in electronics, so I never was like incredibly accurate on a electronics engineer level, but I at least learned that, hey, this is the temperature that lead-free solder melts at. Here's a hot wand, block off all the other components so that way they don't get hit. And if you like at least a little bit more of a direct attack of like what's happening. The solder balls, the BGA balls have little microscopic cracks in them, and that's what's giving you the red ring of death. But dude, back then, those videos were like, the comments on a lot of them, thank you so much, you saved my Xbox. I'm like, dude, I would love to have your phone number and call you in about 60 days and ask you how your Xbox is. I guarantee you, there's no way, So it's stuff like that where a lot of it isn't necessarily, even necessarily like intentionally people trying to be bad or give misinformation. It's lack of knowledge, Like it worked for me, it worked for him, it works. This is, like that's sort of a lot of it. But the thing with the low cost printers is I think that from people outside of 3D printing looking in, it's hard for them to truly understand what's the benefit of spending $1,000 over 200. They're like, well, this has a big bed, this has an extruder, it has a hot end, and so I think that also that's a huge. This is a lot easier to justify the purchase of, or whatever reasoning is. So I think that's a huge element of it as well. But yeah, the budget 3D printers, which up until I guess like Voron-y stuff, and recently with going with a little bit more, like I would say, I don't want to say tiers, but like more mid-tier, like south of, the $6,000 desktop printers, but north of the $200. That's kind of the demographic I've sort of always catered to on the channel. And
the Vorons for price point, a lot of people, like it's not so much anymore. I think a lot of people have realized like, they're especially with like other printers now, like Rat Rigs and other like semi-commercial printers that are in the same price point as a Voron. A lot of people kind of see, okay, this is how much a printer is that has these features, because you can't. Everything's not always a race to the bottom. But the Vorons were never meant to be cheap printers. Like the cheapest one is the V0. I think it's like $400 to $600 depending on the kit you buy. But they were meant to be just cheaper Ultimakers. So if you see how much an Ultimaker was, they were basically meant to be a DIY Ultimaker analog back in the day. The V1.0 was designed for build a printer that's better than an Ultimaker and cheaper than an Ultimaker. It wasn't meant to be the cheapest entry-level printer. It was it's a lot easier when you explain it on Discord, because you go, it's not 2 money sign for 1 money sign, it's 3 money sign for 2 money sign. And then it makes a bit more sense, because when you cost out, like a lot of people complain about how much some of these printers are, it's like, here's the whole BOM. See how much it costs to buy everything individually. That's just how it ends up. 7 stepper motors, 7 rails, 7 drivers. Like, it just is what it is. And they're open source projects, so you don't have bulk discounts from companies, right? You'll never be able to build a printer cheaper than a $99 Ender 3 Pro that you buy at Micro Center. You'll never be able to, ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just mass produced, slap, you know, and they're buying things in the hundreds of thousands.
And they got leftover parts. I'm sure Creality has like a warehouse of V-wheel bed flingers.
Oh, yeah.
They can just, okay, we're just going to take the extruder from this one, slap it on this one, and now it's the Ender 3 S1 Z Pro X.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that sometimes. The thing I liked, because when I did my first video on Voron 0.1, I wanted to give a little bit of context to like Voron as a whole and the project. And so I did a bit of research on the website and the like original creator and creators and sort of how it's come from where it was till today. And I like the actual, like there's a small little bio on the Voron design website where it basically says the goal was to make a affordable but not cheap 3D printer, like with no compromises, basically, you know, like, and so I think that that's really, like, I think that if that is and was the goal, that they've certainly stayed true to that, because like you said too, I mean, I sourced my V0.1 and I didn't go with all like here in the US like Masumi stuff. I went with a lot of AliExpress. I tried to save some money where I could. And granted, you know, you said too to me on Twitter at one point when I was complaining about prices that I got in at a rough time where like shipping's more expensive, supply chain because of all the stuff going on with Rona, like everything had gone up in price. But my V0.1 probably cost me $1,000 to source. I would say that's what I paid for.
If it makes you feel any better, my V0.0 probably cost about that much as well, because I was on the development team when we were developing that, and that design went through so many, the V0.0 took about, I think about 1.5 years to actually come out. From the original first sketch, like if you go to the V00 manual, at the very end of it, there's pictures of like the development history of it. And originally it had like 4 extrusions. That was it. It was supposed to be 100 millimeters cubed, and it was supposed to be mostly printed. So it was like 4 extrusions. And then so everyone ordered 4 extrusions. And then it was supposed to be rods. So we all bought 6 millimeter rods. And then the design changed to rails. And then it's like, oh wait, we need 8 extrusions. Oh, actually no, we need 16 extrude or 12. No, actually we need that. So like, I think I had 3 orders to Masumi in at the time because that's all that was available. 1515 wasn't available.
Those are not
off
a standard, not a very standard.
So the design changed 1,000,000 times with that thing. Because the V0 is actually, a lot of people don't realize what it was designed to be originally. Because now whenever I see like, what is it, the Rat Rig people, they just announced the V-Core 200 now. So it's a V-Core, they're big frame Core XY, but it's a 200 millimeter bed. And I'm like, I know it. I go right into the comments on the YouTube video and somebody's like, this is a V0 killer. And I'm like, that's not what, well, one, it's double the price and it's 80 millimeters bigger, so it's not even the same tier. But the V0, you remember the dice printer?
From Murph, I have a video of it from 2018 Murph.
The dice. So that thing was 100 millimeters cubed, roughly, I believe. It was like all custom framed and whatnot.
German guy, if I remember. I remember the article.
Crazy engineering, and that was really cool. Everyone was so cool.
Nutty.
The V0 is basically doing the dice with no custom parts. That's what that was originally meant to be. That's why it started as a 100 millimeter bed. And then we ended up switching it to 120 because there are 120 millimeter printers out there, and it was easier to get flex plates and bed mats for and whatnot. So we upped the size a bit. But originally that was just supposed to be a cheap DIY dice that you didn't need custom parts for. Because the dice was cool.
Ordering it. It was
but
expensive.
you needed, it was expensive as hell, and it was all custom.
You can order, well, you could order from him if I remember, because I looked. I remember after seeing that there's a video on YouTube of this thing, and it's not printing, it's just going in all the like max, like, and I was like, what? Like, I mean, back in, dude, that thing was, if I saw it in 2018, it had to have been at least a year older than that, I would think, by that point.
It's been around for a while.
Yeah, and so I remember looking at it, and the prices were, I don't know if it was euros in Germany or, you know, and I did my little conversion and was like, ooh, I don't know about that.
So, but it was cool though. Everyone like, and now there's a ton of small printers out there. Because now, and I think like the Prusa Mini came out with the 180. So I don't know if they were the first 180 printer, but they were the first like really big. Actually, no, there might have been a Trog or Cetus maybe. Well, no, the Ender 2 was older than the Prusa Mini. Oh yeah, the Ender 2, But like now I got the KPS 3. There's a few coming out with 180, but the small printers. Now I'm starting to see a lot of small printers. There's the Mini V-Core there, which is 200, which it's not really a small printer, but
no, 200 by 200 millimeters was actually, I think that was the standard before 220 by 220 and before 235 by 235, because Creality set the standard for 235 by 235. It was not that before. It was either 220 by 220 or 200 by 200. Whatever was on the Folgertech 2020 that I had was a PCB bed. It was like sort of the predecessor to what's on the MK3S Plus.
Was it like the first gen Prusa bed type thing?
It was kind of like the first gen Prusa bed, maybe. I won't be able to find it right now, but like it's if you look up like rep wrap heated bed, it's a red bed, and that was the standard for the size of bed back in, which I think was 200 by 200 millimeters. And so it's very interesting how 3D printing has almost gone the way of cell phones, where like it was all about like bigger, and all of a sudden it's like smaller, smaller.
And I did that too. My very first, so I started with the Monoprice Select Mini because it was the cheapest printer at the time, especially in Canada. That's what kind of screwed me over being up here in Canada. We didn't have the availability. There was no Micro Center up here. So I had the Monoprice Select Mini, and then I'm like, this is too small. So when I built my first Voron, it was a V1.5. It was 300 by 300 by 400 on the set. It's actually the tall boy. So the tall boy V2 I have now, same frame, and it's massive. And then right after that, I built my 250 V2. So I'm like, that is
a good happy medium, right? Like a good middle ground. Yeah.
Like now, right now my recommended is the 300. A 300 millimeter printer is pretty much big enough for 99% of people out there. Like very rarely do you need more than that, because 350 gets big quick.
So the thing is like, obviously in the time I've been 3D printing, I printed all sorts of things, from like functional stuff to knickknacks and doodads to like, I mean, everything, right? And I would say that this is just pulling a number out of there, 90% of what I printed probably would fit on the V0.1, 90%.
Yeah, if you're printing one at a time.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I'm not talking about batches. No way would that fit. But singular parts, like as far as capable of printing this part, yes, the V01 could do most of it. Typically, when I'm printing bigger than that, it's just because I can, or because I'm testing out a 3D printer. Like I don't, like most of the functional things I do are like a little L bracket or a tiny little sorting thing, or, so I think that maybe having, and of course, like if you tell me you're just doing cosplay stuff, you're like, yeah, you need a big printer, dude. How are you gonna print a test piece on this?
It really depends on what you're doing, because you got to remember what are like the two most common printers out there right now. You have like the Prusa Mark III, and you have the Ender 3, or any other generic V-wheel bed flinger that is an Ender 3 derivative, and those are 220, 235, 250-ish. So
there's
most
also
stuff
a lot of
is
people with the CR10, because like the CR10, the CR10, because I didn't get on the Creality train. Well, I don't know if I'm on a train, but like I didn't get on a Creality printer until the Ender 3. Like I didn't do the Ender 2. I at the time was just like, I don't know, cantilever design. Like I had the Monoprice Select Mini. I don't know if I want to go back to that. I like this stability. And then it was, what happened? Then it was a CR10, which I was like, that's a monster. I don't know if I need that. And it also had single lead screw for that huge gantry. I was like, I don't know if I'm crazy about that either. And so when the Creality announced the Ender 3, that was probably one of the few times in the time I've been in 3D printing where I pre-ordered it. I was like, cool, I'll get it in 60 days, whatever. And that, I will say though, for again, not talking today's standards, talking when I lived with my buddy 5.5 years ago, coming from the ANET A8 to the Ender 3 was like seeing the light. It was a huge difference. No acrylic. I mean, like I printed and it just worked. Again, PLA. So like, it's interesting how from 8 years ago or 9 years ago to 4 years ago to today, like it's just such a difference in terms of like what was considered good and now what's like, yeah, that's kind of like, oof, like that's
kind of like,
we don't talk about that.
One of my, I have the project idea. I got a notepad saved on my server of like project ideas I want to do, and the one that is right at the top right now is I'm still trying to hunt down an original Ultimaker, an original wooden kit Ultimaker Original Plus, or Original Plus, because you mentioned like how much 3D printing has come. But in a lot of regards, it's not really changed too much. We're still using NEMA 17s. Motion systems are kind of pretty much the same. We're still belt drive, still heated beds. There's a lot of lipstick on it, but at the end of the day, they're all pretty much Lego arranged in slightly different ways. It's just now we have, clipper and bed probes and 32-bit and quiet steppers. But in terms of the actual functionality of a printer, there's still pretty much the same hardware underneath it all.
a lot more information has also, like, the thing is like, you know how we talked about the printing the first little cube layer, and that's how you adjust your E-steps, or the Xbox on the towel. A lot of it too is that, like, back then it was sort of underground, like garage type thing, and there wasn't a ton of people on YouTube either making videos or anything, like, so it was like small communities of people sharing little bits of information, and so there wasn't standards. Like, it's definitely like a huge proponent of what's made things better is people sharing ideas. Hey, I tried this like 3-to-1 gear ratio. It's working much better for this. Or hey, this speed. So it's a little bit of everything. Like the slicers have gotten substantially better. Slicers were terrible when I first started printing, dude. It was really bad, man.
The slicer that shipped with my Monoprice Select Mini was like pre-open source Cura. It was like Cura 15, which was way before they redid it all as Ultimaker.
Yeah.
Cura,
oh yeah, it went from the high numbers back down to like
because they like redid it all from
series.
Scratch.
Yep.
So and it's like now with like Super Slicer, and then you got tools like Input Shaper and Pressure Advance and Linear Advance. And
it's insane.
It's funny how much things that were just everywhere and super common in CNC world are now kind of trickling into 3D printing, and it's like, oh my god, it's like, and then you got, you know, somebody who's an old machinist is like, what, I've been having that since like the 90s. What are you all happy about? Crash detection?
I don't.
What do you mean? I got spindle load indicators on my machine and whatnot, like.
Yeah, since I didn't have that, any sort of machine friends or machinist background stuff, like, to me it's all very, very new, and it wasn't until I started seeing like, oh wow, so you can use the end mill and this little probe to actually like conduct it or like close, like, you know, basically like the bit offset and like how far it is away from the material. And I was like, that's really cool. So I wasn't exposed to that until well after 3D printing. I didn't know. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the electronic stuff that I know now was from tinkering and watching videos and learning and stuff like that. So yeah, the information is much more vast. I do think that although everything is super similar, it's also like similar but better, like kind of like you said, man. Like I don't know if the lipstick on it is the exact way I would describe it.
Like put it this way, like on a CNC machine, right? You got your probe for picking up the machine piece, and then you got like a tool offset indicator and everything. And now we're finally, you know, with the clicky probe, we finally have that thing that docks with your tool head, and you can measure the bed with it, and then it goes and puts it away, and then you got your Z offset right there, your Z clicky switch, and this is stuff that's been completely the norm on CNC machines for decades.
A long time.
And now it's like, oh, we should put that on our 3D printers. And it's like, that tech is starting to come in. A lot of it's from patents opening up, which I'm sure we'll get to talking it soon about the whole Ultimaker Makerbot thing. Because I seen somebody in chat, and we had planned about talking about that. So I guess we'll kind of break into that. But before that, we'll just do a little. What are we at right now? We're at the halfway point, so just gonna step in for a second here. Just to remind you all that at the end of the stream, we are gonna do a draw for a spool of Polymaker filament. So make sure you check out polymaker.com. They make some awesome filament. And then if you want to enter for that draw, the link is in the description, and it's open worldwide. So one person will win one spool, and we give away a spool of filament from Polymaker every live stream now. And also, while you're in the description, there's some links to ModBot's informational. So he's got 2 YouTube channels. He's got his YouTube channel where he does his VOD content, the videos, and then he has another YouTube channel where he does his live stream. So make sure you are subscribed to both. Go down there, click subscribe, do this now, please and thank you. He also has his Twitter in there. Go follow him on Twitter. So yeah, so I think right now we're at the halfway point now. We've been kind of bantering for a bit. So I guess we'll kind of open it up to the audience here. So while you guys are asking questions, don't forget to like that smash button. But yeah, so I guess somebody already asked it. So we'll go into that Makerbot and Ultimaker becoming Maker, Ultimaker bot, Ultibot, Maker. I'm for Maker. It should just be Maker. Or you know what? They're gonna go all WebTube and they'll be like Maker Cubed or something like that, or Maker Squared.
Do we know that they're actually going to
become
one entity?
They are becoming one entity. It looks like here's the thing. Ultimaker and Makerbot are not standalone companies. They are owned by other companies. So Stratasys Okay, Stratasys owns Makerbot, and then some holding company owns Ultimaker. And they're being merged, like their holding companies are putting in for this new company, I guess. And it will be majority Ultimaker controlled. It's like 55-45 or something like that. I think it's the nature of the beast because I think there's the market they're both going after isn't big enough to support them both. Because Stratasys is the high end. Makerbot is just the entry level tier to get you to Stratasys. It's to get your feet wet for the smaller companies and just give you the taste of it and then get you in the ecosystem. And then Stratasys will pull you up if you're that. Ultimaker, I don't think there is a higher tier for Ultimaker.
No,
they are just Ultimaker. So I think that entry level, well, not entry level, but like the entry to mid level consumer, professional, industrial, government contract, educational contract tier isn't big enough to support them both now, because I think they've got their contracts already, and there's not like a million new schools and businesses opening up that are needing contracts. So it's like they need to amalgamate to survive type thing, or at least there's no sense in fighting. They're going to both lose if they fight.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, a few things. Like thought. One, for anyone that doesn't know, like I worked at Matter Hackers for like 3 years selling both these printers. Granted, we didn't sell Makerbot the whole time. We sold them in the last year or so while I was there. And the only experience I had with Makerbot prior to us selling them was the documentary on Netflix, Print the Legend, which is a fantastic documentary. If anyone hasn't seen it, about a lot of the Formlabs resin printing company and like kind of the sort of the ground of 3D printing in a sense. And was that Makerbot did all sorts of like sort of like shady-ish thing. I won't get too
We're
mean,
open
but,
source.
Like,
no, we're not.
Yeah, exactly. Like they did a kind of a, it's a little bit of a switching up from, yes, we love community sharing and stuff like that, to like, psych, we're no longer this way. So I had this notion in my head about them from before. I never really gave them a chance as a company because of me being from this video game hacking, like, the little man like should win. Like it wasn't on par with how I felt and where I was coming from. And so then there was Ultimaker, who, yes, made really pricey machines compared to the demographic of machines I was coming from, but they were gorgeous. I almost saw them like I have.
They were Apple-ish. They were very.
I was just grabbing. I say I have an Apple iPhone, and as much as my personality is give me Android so I can root it and do all this stuff, like there are certain things where I don't need to do all that. And Ultimaker to me was like, man, it's really pretty. They've got this Cura, like they've got NFC tags if you want them, but you can also use third party. Like they did a lot of really positive things, and I think that, sort of like you described, the market is shrinking. Like Ultimaker's old school, Makerbot's old school, Lulzbot's old school. These guys are like early in the 3D printing space, where they had like they had an ocean. The ocean was theirs, man. If they're surfing, there's nobody on those waves but them. And then a lot of the lower cost machines, either coming out of China or even domestic or wherever else, came into the picture. And now all of a sudden there's a flood of new printers. And yes, some of the entry-level printers aren't so good, but some of them are decently good, and there are just a lot more options out there than there ever were before. And so I think that pool, it's like a public pool. You got there early, and there was 3 people swimming, and now the whole community showed up.
Yeah,
There's a lot less water.
The tide is rising. So you could tell, like, they haven't been in the home gamer 3D printer market for 5+ years. Like they completely abandoned that entry-level at-home 3D printing completely. Like the only people that buy it are like people that are just blinging, like I'm gonna buy an Ultimaker for my house to print benchies, or business contract, government contracts, educational contracts are the big one. So you had that niche there, and you have Prusa now that's kind of that middleman. It was you either buy a cheap entry-level Asia market printer, you buy a Prusa, or you go pro with the Ultimaker and Makerbots. Yeah. And I think another like this tinfoil hat. Okay, I got a spool of tinfoil filament here. I think, I don't know if this is because of it, but Prusa is angling for those contracts now, if you haven't noticed. Printed Solid David is doing Prusa contracts.
Dude, he's
got the XL is coming out. That's going to be an enclosed printer. It's going to have multi-material support, tool heads.
His print farm thing, the automation in Saudi, he's got that going in Dubai, I think is where it's at.
Now, I'm not saying they're amalgamating because they're afraid of Big Papa Joey P. But I'm sure that came up because Prusa now, how many Prusas? Oh, LDO, Jason, I'll get to you in a second. Prusa, how many Prusas are out there in the world? You can check. They've sold 250,000 of Prusas. That's 250,000 people that have experience with Prusa at the home level, that grew up with 3D printing, that have been involved in 3D printing now, that are going into businesses going, hey, we need printers for work. You know what? I've been using this Prusa for a couple years. It's a pretty good printer. Oh, they're doing commercial contracts now. Let's just get a bunch of Prusas. So, because Prusa can't go down. I think I mentioned this. I don't know if we were talking.
It was just me and you. It was me and you when we were doing like a test
You can't punch down now because you've developed this good brand name of quality. And yeah, they got the Prusa Mini, which is their entry-level printer, but they can't go any lower because they can't put out a cheap V-Wheel bed flinger. It'll tarnish the name. And so you can't punch down. You might as well punch up because there's more profit margins up there at that point. Jason, 1999, cheers. Hello, guys. Happy Friday. Busy to wrap all the luggage and fly to Detroit tomorrow for Rapids. Sweet. I will see you Tuesday. Meet you there if you do. I will be going. LDO booth. I will meet you there. I will see you. If you're going tomorrow, maybe we'll figure something out, Jason. I'm here every day of the week. But yeah, the Mark III enclosure is a time bomb. I'm a little worried about the Mark III enclosure. Here's the thing.
Pricing or what about it?
Well, here's the thing. Outside of pricing, it looks very solid.
It's beautiful looking.
It looks great. It's stackable. It's a solid thing. If you were to drop one at my doorstep and be like, what do you think of this? I'd be like, that's a dang good box. But I understand his global market is completely garbage right now. Prices right now don't make sense. It just doesn't make sense for anything right now, especially when you're bringing a new thing to market that's custom. But PETG, I did a series on my channel a little while ago on how to print ABS for dummies. And the amount of comments I got out of that video from people saying I melted my Prusa because I put it in a cardboard box and printed all their Voron parts is astounding. So it would be nice if that kit came with like a set of ABS parts for the Prusa, but it depends. If you're just doing, because you only have the heat from the bed. If you're only printing PLA and maybe PETG in that box with the doors closed, you're probably fine. But if you're printing ABS continuously,
you
might want to leave the doors open a crack.
It might depend on how you print ABS too, though, because prior to the Voron community and getting involved with people doing Voron stuff, I had never heard of heat soaking your enclosure. Like, that was never a thing to me. You let your bed heat up and you run it. But now, like, a lot of people I talk to, they're like, yeah, I let the printer heat up, I let it sit for half an hour so that way the ambient temperature inside hits a certain temp, and then they're able to do a full plate with no issues. And so, and I've played around with that a little bit. There's validity to that statement. You let it soak to actually get consistent temperature internally, not just have little pockets of heat, and it does really make a difference. That's where I think you'll start running into issues long term for sure, is if you're really pushing those temps up. But the occasional ABS print, I mean, I've done the same with my Prusa without any problems at all. But again, fairly low end of the spectrum on ABS printing temperatures, and I also wasn't soaking the thing for half an hour trying to get everything maximized, So yeah, I mean, when I saw the thing come out, I watched the video and it was like, I love it. I'm like, beautiful, like stackable, awesome, that's great. Lights, great. Filter option, great. All this stuff, awesome. And then I went to the product page and was like, starting at $350.
Yeah, I fully kitted one out on stream. It was like $700 or something like that. And I'm like,
I did too and posted in Discord. I said, holy cow. I'm like,
so what you do is you buy another Prusa and you use the cardboard box that Prusa came in and you put it on your first Prusa.
Exactly.
And then you get two.
Here's the thing though. Like you said a minute ago, we were talking about Ultimaker and Makerbot, then we drifted to Prusa, and Prusa getting into the, like, now they've got a footprint on US soil because of printed solid, and they can do contracts and stuff. The people that this is targeted at don't care about that price.
It's schools.
Yeah, they don't
care. They don't want little Timmy who took that little class in grade 6 about making something Windows 3D Builder, touching the hotbed.
But even government though. Even government, you tell the government, hey, we're going to give you 4 enclosure. It's an extra $2,000. So whatever. It doesn't matter. Like it's a non-issue. Yeah, exactly. It's a non-issue. So I think that again, the people that, and a lot of things are like that. The people that it's intended for will see the value in it and they'll purchase it. The ones that don't, which I'm just saying from my point of view, it's a hard justification. I could see myself buying it for the fun of it, of like like the people, the tech reviewers that bought the Apple cloth for $50 or whatever. I'm not saying it's that extreme. I'm not saying it's that extreme. I'm just saying I can see myself getting it as like a, let's take a look at it. But from like, from thinking of outside of creator, outside of showing people this thing, I don't know that I can justify it over DIYing a lac table. I just don't. It's a very tough pill to swallow. I think I told someone that you can get one of these enclosures or 2 muscle racks that can hold your whole print farm setup, Yep. So it's tough, man.
It has a market, and it's probably not the person who prints the flavor of the month print off TikTok and Reddit. Like that, it has its market, and it's where Prusa's going. Like I trust Prusa to never leave their roots. They will probably always have their entry level. They'll always have their. You got the Mini, and you got the Mark III, and then you got the XL. You got your entry level, your serious about 3D printing level, and you got your very serious / professional level printing.
To me, the XL is at the point where you're either you either have money to splurge on your hobby, or your goal is to get this thing to make some money back.
What
and have it pay for
I think
itself.
that machine will be, I've got a pre-order for one.
Yeah, me too.
So there's really, the single-headed version I think is dumb. I don't think many people will buy the single-headed, tool-headed version. The 5-headed version, is it 5 or 4? I think it's 5. That will be, in my opinion, not the best, because if you're printing multicolor, you don't need multiple tool heads. You can do Rage Rabbit, Carrot Feeder, MMU, palette. There's already ways of doing multicolor. Yeah, you have Purge, but there's already ways of doing it that's not dropping $3,500 on a printer. Okay.
Yep.
It's the dually. It's the 2 tool head for support material, because that will be a cosplayers or a professional person that needs to print stuff that you need soluble support. That will be their dream printer, because it's gonna have a big volume, and you can print 2 materials, tool heads. It'll be nice and quick. I think that will be its biggest variant. I think is that one.
I think twofold. So I think that's absolutely one of the things. The downside I will say is this is like, I've actually played around with a bit of dual-headed machines, both in my time at Matter Hackers. We sold a ton of them. I have one right here and the IDEX machine up here. So I've done quite a bit of like PLA, PVA, ABS hips, and some other stuff. And the only downside is in my opinion, currently, the dual extrusion water soluble stuff, it kind of sucks right now. It's not very good. Like PVA is the most hygroscopic, dude, I mean, we're talking, you think
I've played with it too.
It's gnarly. So drying it is a pain. There are some next generation soluble filaments out there that I've heard great things about, but they're also $100 a spool. And so it's like, the thing that I think though, I think that more accessibility and more demand to these dual machines will drive the chemistry further in terms of people researching what will work. And also, there are things like, for example, let's say you're printing out like a cosplay part that needs a bunch of PVA or some sort of water soluble. The thing you can do though is instead of printing with a bunch of it, which is super messy and expensive, you can just use it for your interface layers. So the 3 layers prior to it touching your part, you have this little shield of that, a little like cocoon, and that makes it much easier to remove and much easier to print. But I will say that I've been planning on doing a PVA video forever to sort of like give my point of view on it, which is where like, if you have to use it, it exists. If you don't have to use it, stay the hell away from it, because it is not super fun.
To add to that, it's a very good thing Prusa has their own filament manufacturing line, and they've also been heavily involved in developing slicers and printer firmware that is very capable.
Yeah.
So I got a feeling they're going to be probably like, because there are other machines out there that do dual extrusion, right? Ultimaker's doing whatever. But Prusa is, they're really putting the money into getting it working. And I got a feeling that is something they probably heavily invested in. Yeah. Because I'm sure Prusa's slicer will have those options for the different type of supports where, oh, you just want interface layer? You can have interface layer. Oh, you want it like this? You want it like this. Like, even with the XL being fully enclosed, once they put a hat on it, you can do ABS and hips and all other kinds of, you don't have to use
little
PVA.
Organ, they got that little cute Organ.
The accordion, the skirt, you got to pull the skirt up.
Yeah, it reminds them. It's like,
You know what though? If they do that, I give David 2 weeks to have an acrylic door on that.
Oh, sure. Thing. Yeah, print it solid, right?
Well, yeah. Okay, you got your ACM panels and your acrylic door. Done. Here's the kit. So David, if you haven't got on it, get on it.
with Prusa now having their own in-house enclosure, there's no way that they're not already working on something. There's just no way, man. They've obviously got the laser cutter or whatever they're using to cut out acrylic or you know, do their thing there.
Oh,
the one other thing about the XL that I think as well is the multi-material aspect of it. Not multicolor, but multi-material. Because when I met E3D at also Murph 2018, they had the tool changer there, and I think it was Greg who was one of the main people behind the development of it, and someone else on the team was showing me the parts they had there, and they were meshing materials that I've never seen meshed. Like, I'm talking like nylon carbon fiber with TPU and a PETG in the same part or something like that. And so like right now it's very tough to layer swap different filaments because of temperature differences, and a lot of the times they'll repel each other. But if you're able to somehow in the slicer or in the model create some sort of like internal, oh God, why can I think of words right now? When you have two different parts that slot into each other, it's called a dovetail. Like an internal dovetail for the parts that now you've got, the ends need to be really rigid like you want it, but the middle part needs to be polypropylene, so it's got like a living hinge to it. Like it just opens the, like, I'm not saying I'll use it all the time, and I'm not saying that I'll, you know, but for the people that want that, it's freedom, dude. It's like complete freedom to do those type of things. And E3D's tool changer is also like, it's very much so that, so I don't want to discredit them because that thing is amazing and I've been wanting to get one forever. It's just the calibration and the project and the side, like I haven't pulled the
E3D tool changer is very much like a development platform. It's not
they sold it like that.
Yeah, they don't sell it as a 3D printer. They sell it as like a test bed. It's
absolutely.
Here's a toy that if you know what you're doing, you can have some fun with, but please don't buy this and, you know, give it the little Timmy to print bench these on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I've seen a few people that own them and they're insane. And again, like I also have been, I mean, if the XL wasn't coming out, there's a good chance now with the stream stuff, like maybe I would have bought one, just been like, hey, we'll build it, we'll figure it out together. But just the amount of, like, I think it's running off of Duet typically.
Yeah, it's a Duet.
Yeah, and so like I also don't have experience with that, which would prove to be another complication, is how do I even compile for this thing? And so, but I still think though that both things should and need to exist, because again, E3Ds is like, here's the blueprint for this crazy system and you can go buck wild with it, while hopefully Prusa is for the little less adventurous people that want to explore that stuff but don't really want to like go into the cave with the little, you know, headlight on and explore. I needed to give a visual.
If the XL comes out and it's as usable and as capable as a Mark III, it will be a mass. It'll be nuts, it's gonna be hard to say it'll be worth the money because it's a lot of money. I am not looking forward to cutting Papa Joe's.
Neither am I. I've been saving every month as like a side fund for it, dude.
Yeah, so make sure you don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, consider becoming a channel member and all that, because the FedEx bill on that one is
only Benchies, right? You got swag now. You got to push
only
the
Benchies swag.
Well.
Yeah. Don't forget the only Benchies swag. yeah. There we go. Got to rep the merch. FedEx is gonna make a killing off that when that shows up at the door. Jeez.
Yo, you're talking about your VAT or whatever. The
what?
The VAT you have to pay, or like the import
Well, it's not
fee?
VAT, but basically anything that comes into Canada gets like a 13% tax on it because it's HST. So yeah, it'll be like, what is it, 2,500 US plus exchange rate plus that plus customs fee plus, oh my, it's gonna be like $4,000.
I'm still not sure whether I'm doing the the 2 or the 4. I think right now I just pre-ordered the 1. I'm definitely getting more than the 1. I just the pre-ordering, because it said you can change it later. Seeing the price tag of 2,000 made me like less want to hide under my blanket than clicking the full 4 or 5 or whatever. I do think though it's very fascinating that when they showed it, the board kind of works almost like a computer motherboard with like expansion cards.
Yep. So that's another thing I wanted to, because I've mentioned this on stream before. I got a feeling with Prusa trying to do everything, like you've noticed, they're trying to bring everything in house now. They've got their own PCB fab line.
Yep.
They've got their own filament manufacturing. They've got their own everything. They're moving everything in house. Their own hot end now for the XL. I got a feeling the Mark IV will use a lot of stuff from the XL, including probably that controller board, because then they'd just be the one controller board instead of needing the add-on. And then you can put the add-on if you want the MMU unit. Like I got a feeling they're going to try and amalgamate their line and like the hardware and the components they have in-house quite a bit. So
well, Buddy board, I think, was their own in-house thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For the Prusa Mini.
Yeah. Which I'm pretty sure you could use a buddy board on a Mark III. I'm pretty sure there's nothing really stopping you. Because I think it has all the hook. 4 stepper drivers and it's all sensorless. So
5 stepper drivers.
No, the Mark III uses 1 driver for both stead motors. They're
oh, okay, gotcha. So they're run in series. Parallel. There we go.
They run together. It trams by smashing into the top.
Exactly.
Somebody was asking about the AnkerMake.
There's been questions in chat. Yeah, I feel bad. I've looked over a couple times and I'm like, I know.
Yeah. Okay. So AnkerMake. What do you think of AnkerMake? The software and the M5 printer, and apparently they got a multi-material unit now or something.
So this is an interesting topic because I actually have a video coming out on a Kickstarter printer very, very soon, which is something I normally would never do. But there was certain parameters surrounding it that made it where I was able to like make a justification. The Anker situation though, like, I don't know. It's interesting. So the machine itself, on its outside, looking at it from far away, doesn't look very different from many of the other bed slingers that are out there, right? It doesn't. It looks like someone took a Ender 3 at its core and then souped up the board on it, added some special electronics or features to it, and and put a bunch of like marketing buzzwords behind it. Yep. That being said, though, I hope that they are successful. And I think that they could be successful. The parent company, or Anker, I mean, I know that they're a massive company, right? That makes
they do batteries, packs,
yeah.
cables.
I've owned their products.
Yeah.
I purchased their products, and it's always been really good. Now, I'm not saying that making a rechargeable battery and making a 3D printer are the same thing. There's a lot more, no pun intended, moving pieces, involved with a 3D printer. But the thing is that they know manufacturing, right? Like, they know how to manufacture. That's what they do. They make things. Yeah. And so I have a feeling that I don't know also, like, a lot of big companies have sort of just like created printers, but they've kind of been like white labeled, like Monoprice, for example. They don't make their own printers.
They don't. No, they're all relabeled. The MP, the Monoprice like Mini is a. It's not a flash forge. I don't think it's a flash forge. It's some other.
Maybe not. But they do use flash forge.
It's like a Milan or Million or something. I remember it was like some weird Philippine printer or something.
They do flash forge as well, though. Like, some of their machines, were like flash forge. I know that also. Dremel had some printers that were also flash forged, and even Makerbot has some flash forge. Flash forge is just doing everyone's machine. Everyone gets the machine. So the thing I don't know is who's the brains behind this, right? Like, what's their background? How involved are they in 3D printing? How did they come to the conclusion on the decisions that they made on it? Because it's, again, like, yes, it's great, you know how to manufacture stuff, but if you're not knowing 3D printing from the ground floor up, it's very difficult to just jump into a technology like this and kick butt with it and do a great job. So, like, my view on it is, I hope they succeed. I know that there's been a lot of kind of conversation or back and forth about the whole Kickstarter element of them going the Kickstarter route. I get it, like, they're a huge company, and typically we're a no, like, that's not okay type thing. But although it's always vocally that the Kickstarters always seem to get backed by many, many millions of dollars. So clearly, like, there are a lot of people that are
they've made more on that Kickstarter than most companies make. Like, they haven't shipped anything yet.
there's still a ton of people that are willing to take the chance. And I do think that in this case, considering who they are, that it would probably really hurt them as a company to not, like, they have a lot to lose because they are so established. They're not just a, well, if it doesn't work out, type thing. I hope that it works out. I haven't looked into it too heavily. I know that they claimed ridiculous speeds, which, based off of some of the videos I saw, it's certainly moving quicker than an Ender. But you have to also realize, like, the Ender, the acceleration by default on it is set to next to nothing. So I've
looked into it. It's 250 millimeters a second, max at 2500 Excel.
Okay. Okay, but I mean, still 5 times what the Ender's default acceleration is, right? I think it's
Ender. I think is 1,000.
500.
I know. The KPS 3. The stock settings for it were 200 millimeters a second, travels at 1000 Excel.
Okay.
And
maybe it is.
Just for reference, the hardware on an Ender can go much faster. I threw Clipper on a bone stock Ender 3 and was whipping around at 300 millimeters a second, 5000 Excel. So it's not a hardware thing, and honestly, 32-bit Marlin could do that on. You could do that on an Ender. with,
Yeah.
you know, if you take the time to actually
settings,
have proper
tune it.
motors and settings and make sure everything's right, you
I've
2500
seen
Excel
people-
isn't outrageous.
In some of my comments on videos, I've seen people state like, yeah, I've got Clipper on my Ender and it's going this quick or that quick as well. But I think that there is still that difference of this printer is like that from factory versus you have to get it, tune it, know what you're doing with it type thing. So, you know, the 3D printing has not ever, in my opinion, become mainstream. It is mainstream, I would say, like in the sense that like it's not a secret underground movement. But it's not like it's not like people like treat it like their toaster or their 2D printer. Like and I don't know, unless it's a very closed system where parameters are incredibly rigid, I don't know that it could ever be like that. There's so many different variables depending on what you actually want, and there's not necessarily a right or wrong. But I do think that the ability to, if this thing is high QC in terms of they really quality control it, manufacturing's great, they warranty it, it does perform fairly well, that it could open the door for other people to get into 3D printing. And I'm not against that at all. Like anytime the technology becomes more accessible, like that's fantastic. I don't know, like if I had how much, I think retail on them, they're saying is be $1,000 or so.
No, because they had the price, but I'm trying to remember, because if I remember correctly, Fixer, AnkerMake, M5.
I think that the Kickstarter price was like $600.
Didn't Creality have a printer a little while ago that was aimed for like the everyday person type printer? Like I think it was like the Ender Smart.
The Smart?
Yeah, didn't like I remember Joel.
Angus. No, I think Angus did a video on it where he basically, I think, said like I think it was a CR10 Smart isn't very smart. I think that was like what the video was.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So the AnkerMate M5 Kickstarter special is $599.
Yep.
But the actual like retail price of it is I don't know, it's like $750. It's a Prusa.
Okay.
Like its retail price is within the ballpark of a Prusa. So in my opinion, this machine would have to be better than a Prusa. It would have to be more reliable and basically beat a Prusa in every tier for it to be worth it. Is it faster? We'll say it's faster than a Prusa, but is it more reliable, easier to use, more simpler out of the box? How's support? What I'm really worried about this is the app. You have to use their app to use like there's AI camera monitoring. Everything is tied to their app. Apparently, if I remember correctly, Uncle Jesse did say it will eat regular G code. So you could slice like regular G code on any slicer and feed it to it. You don't have to use their slicer. But if you want to monitor it or anything, you have to use their app. And that's the only thing I'm hesitant about, because now that printer is tied to the app, and 2 years from now, oh, it didn't work, we're gonna shut it down. Well, now your printer is no longer as usable as it was. Or hey, you want to use, you just bought 20 of these for your print farm. Okay, now it's $5 a month per printer. Like, like that's the only thing I'm always hesitant to jump into with something new, right? You never buy first year production of a car, right? Like, whenever there's something like new, especially when it's tied to a service. If you play computer games lately, how are games as a service working out, right? How's Halo Infinite doing right now? I'm very hesitant to jump on stuff that's tied to some sort of app, because remember those services, like their big thing. Okay, webcam, AI and detection. Okay, go buy well, you can't right now, but in the future when stock is there, Raspberry Pi 02 with Octoprint with Spaghetti Detective and a webcam. Like, and you can slap that on any camera or any printer.
My thought is this though, man, is that like, they're like, ultimately the consumer will decide whether there's a demand for it, right? Like, like, and so my thing is this, is like, I'm all for like, bring what you, like, one, competition's good for the consumer typically. Well, there's a lot to that, like, especially with different machines and like confusing people, but, competition is generally good because it sort of drives innovation and is good for pricing for the consumer and stuff like that. So not against it in that regard. Also, as much as I, like I said, like the ability to have control of my things, mod them, do what I want with them, I also find it very, I also find joy in sometimes the simplicity of like, I'm okay with using your sort of closed or your ecosystem because it does what I want it to do for the specific machine. What I don't like is either the bait and switch, saying it'll do these things, but then it doesn't, or the like things being hidden really heavily behind like a paywall type thing. Like that I don't like, but I'm okay with if they say up front that like you what is something that I use that I pay for like regularly. I'm trying to think of an example of something where I'm cool with paying for this specific thing from this specific company because it's simple and the simplicity of it is justifies the little bit of extra cost for me. So I think that the people, the consumers that it will be for will know it's for them. The ones that it's not for will complain about it and say probably negative things about it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter to them because they've got their target audience and that's all. Yep. It's the same thing like we just talked about with the
it'll be interesting to look back a year after it comes out. It'll be interesting because obviously, like I had it on the screen there. They've raised $10 million with 10,000 backers.
It's nuts.
So
it's insane.
that may seem like a lot. Let's see.
Well, I mean, it is a lot, depending on what what's the
well, yeah. You know, 10,000 3D printers is a lot, but I'm trying to pull up here. How many Prusas they sold last year? Because if I'm not mistaken, they sold like 100,000 last year or more than. I know they didn't. They sold more last year than the year before, but I'm trying to find their blog post here. But it seems like a lot, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out in a year. Like they've got 10,000 sales locked down, but once it's actually out and it's $750 plus tax, how will it fare then? That I think is kind of will be the tale of this printer and how it pans out in the long run, I think. So
I mean, even like using Uncle Jesse as an example because he made the video on it, right? Like he has a print farm and he's been using primarily Elegoo Neptune 2s, and Jesse, I would say, does FDM for sure, and I think he started off as FDM, but he's obviously known as like the uncle of resin. Like that's definitely like his main thing. When everyone thinks of resin printing, oh, check out Uncle Jesse, he's got these awesome videos, and I use them and learn a lot from them. The thing I will say though, and he's said it before plenty of times, that like he's not the most heavily technical person. Like when you dive into like firmware and the weeds of all those types of things. And so for someone like Uncle Jesse that's been using the Neptune S, and yes, like again, he's like added Wi-Fi to it and made some changes, but for him, having this Anker machine that works really well, and he doesn't have to tweak settings and slicers and all that stuff. He just wants to print his parts out and sell the things that he's making. But now this one's printing them twice as fast. That's valuable. You know,
that is a thing. It's really going to depend how the machines, because the thing is, I'm very hesitant to say anything on him because nobody has a production machine. Sure. That's the problem. That's why I'm not I understand the promotional videos and I got nothing against them, but nobody has a production machine. So until then, anyone like they just announced they're going to have their they posted on Twitter multi-material, and it's going to be like, oh, 6 filaments, no purge tower, it's going to be perfect. It's like I can spin up a 3D render and write some random words on Twitter until people actually have it and have it functioning.
Proof is in the pudding. Yeah,
it's just nothing. It's just didn't like LTT got one, Uncle Jesse got one. I think there was another YouTube channel that got one, but they got them for promotional reasons, which they were meant to be promotional. So
I just look to the left. It says Daniel looks like he would drive an STI. I wish I had an STI. My car is a Toyota Corolla. It is the most basic car, no tinted windows, very, very. My last vehicle prior to this was a souped up truck that I loved very, very much. And then the transmission died pretty quickly after getting it. And I decided that it is cool to have a cool car, but it's also cooler to be able to get from point A to point B. And so I saved up my money. I bought a brand new Corolla in 2014 and I've clocked 125,000 miles on it with only like minimal issues. So yeah, I wish I had an STI. I would gladly take one, but no, I do not. I drive a very, very plain
I drive a Ford Focus that's starting to rust, so.
Yeah.
But it's paid off.
I mean,
it's paid off.
Yeah, mine is too. Mine is too, man. It feels good. I'm like, I look around and I'm like, yeah, because we share a car right now, me and Aaron, and luckily since I've worked remotely or from home for the last couple of years, it hasn't been problematic. And we've looked at other cars, but it's just like, ooh, do we want an extra car payment right now? I don't know.
No, especially everything's gonna come crashing down.
Yeah. I'll wait for the fire sale.
Oh yeah, pretty much. Plus, nobody's actually making cars right now. You can buy a car and it's got like no chips in it. I think they're actually starting to do that.
Oh, it's crazy. It's I just saw a comment saying barely broken in. It's actually funny. I don't want to get on a tangent about Corollas, but my dad and brother both have Corollas. My dad has a few cars, but my dad's Corolla clocked 450,000 miles on the original engine and on the original transmission with just oil changes and basic maintenance. And so when it finally died, it was his commuter car. He went out and bought the exact same one from the exact same year in the exact same color to replace it. And so he still has it. So we love like I didn't even notice. I got in the car, like I hadn't seen him in a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, how do you like the car?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is the." He said, "No, this is the new one." I was like, "Oh my god, dude! Like they're freaking twins, dude. Same model, same colors. I couldn't tell it was a different car." And he
it's funny. I barely drive. My Focus is a 2012, and I just hit 100,000 kilometers on it. Like I think I'm at 101,000 kilometers on it.
Must be nice, man. When I was working out here, I used to live about an hour away from my job.
Oh,
so I was putting on.
I had a 5-minute commute to work, so for 7 years, the past 7 years.
Must be nice. Must be nice, man. It was not the case for me at all. But do you want to sort of dance back over to the Makerbot Ultimaker conversation that we left off on, or are we moving? Okay. Yeah. Because I think that the whole Prusa and all of this spiraled from that possibly part of the reason was there, I said more the community pool illustration, and then you had said that, like now also Prusa's got their footprint in the United States, they got contract stuff, and so, maybe that's not the exact reason why, but like it certainly can't be,
it came up
couldn't
during
have
the meeting.
hurt. It couldn't have hurt the decision to move forward with that. So I think that the main concern I've seen is that kind of like I said, a lot of people seem to have fairly nice feelings about Ultimaker. The biggest negative they'd say is like, wow, it's really expensive. While people have fairly negative feelings about Maker. Yeah, so
and because they're tied to Thingiverse, and everyone's been shitting on Thingiverse for how long? And look how Makerbot's handling Thingiverse.
Yeah,
and
what
the
are they going to
printers
do
and
now?
The former founder had a lot of dirt go on there.
Yeah,
but it's
the big concern I see though is a lot of people talking about Cura, and I follow at least 2 or 3 Cura devs on Twitter, and I've seen them sort of defending statements about it and stuff like that. And the reason why I'm not super worried about it is that Cura is open source, and can that change at some point? Sure, but I don't think that they can change history. Like in terms of what's already out there, it would have to be like hey, we're drawing the line in the sand, everything that's out there. And so at that point, what I foresee happening is Cura still maintains as a really good, or, at least I don't use it very much anymore, but a really good slicer that people can still use, and it just becomes branched off, and maybe there's a community that surrounds it that starts adding their own features on it. I don't think it's panic.
One of the people on the Ultimaker team who worked on Cura was posting like, nothing's changing with Cura.
It was probably, I think it was Jamie. It was probably, it's either Jamie or there's one other guy, but I saw the conversation as well, and he kept saying when people were saying like, oh, it's gonna be this, and he said, nope, not happening at all. We own 55%.
I think how it is Stratasys is realizing that they're not getting what they were getting out of Makerbot anymore. And instead of keeping that floating up and fighting against a competitor, I think they're just cutting the rope loose and letting it go over to Ultimaker and just kind of be like, okay, you take care of it now. And I think I think the Makerbot brand will probably get phased out because the Ultimaker brand, at least, here's the thing, we're home people, right? We're not massive businesses with thousands of machines in a fleet with a contract. So I don't know how they think about Ultimaker and Makerbot because I can't speak on their behalf. But I know at the consumer level, if you had, hey, we own both these companies, everyone likes this one and thinks good of it. Everyone thinks this one is poo-poo. Who do you want? What brand do you want to be, which one will take the lead going forward?
It's not rocket science.
Are we going to start painting the Makerbots white? Or are we going to start calling the Ultimakers Makerbots? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it almost it's funny because their machines are always white and Makerbots are typically black. It made me think of like Star Wars, like going over to the dark side or so, And like I couldn't help but look at it. I'm like, oh, like the Ultimakers looks. I mean, I guess there's kind of looks like Stormtrooper style with the white and the nice and all that.
And then the clear glass and
very, very like again that sort of Apple aesthetic to it. But the thing that I think could be a benefit is that, as far as I understand, Stratasys is, that's a fun thing to say. Their patents, I believe.
I thought it was Stratasys.
When it came up at my last job, it was always Stratasys. I called it the Stratus, which I think is in Vegas, like the stratosphere, and I got made fun of, and then was told it was Stratasys. So. Whatever, potato. I know what you're talking about. The patent, I believe, expired on the heated enclosure early this year. So I don't know exactly if that's entirely true or what that's all like. But the bottom line is Stratasys does have some cool tech, and they have the. Oh, why is there flies? I'm sweating. There's like a little, little fly thing on me. Stratasys has experience with heated enclosures, right? And so Ultimaker's never had that. That could be a cool thing for printing with more advanced materials and just doing a better job at printing with materials that have a higher shrinkage rate. Also, Stratasys has a proprietary soluble support material called SR30. SR30 is probably the best support material I have ever used, and I only got to use it at Matter Hackers with the Makerbot. So now Ultimaker can possibly tap into that, that material science that they've got and use that. And so I do think that there are certainly things that can be gained from both. And as much as like when I saw the news, I was kind of like, well, that kind of sucks, because I really kind of liked Ultimaker. I didn't really care for Makerbot. In the grand scheme of things, what sort of effect do I think it'll have on like us? Or none. Little to none.
Oh yeah,
I think little. Yeah.
We're sitting there on the bank watching people play on the other side of the river. Like
yeah, exactly.
This doesn't affect us. If you're in the audience and you actually own a Ultimaker or Makerbot purchased in the past 4 years, press 1 now. Like it's gonna be, and actually be serious. Like if you actually personally own for home use, not for work, you actually personally own an Ultimaker or Makerbot for at-home printing that's been purchased in the past like 4 years, put a 1 in chat. It's gonna be very interesting. It's like an 8-second delay. So let's see if anyone
I sold a ton of Ultimakers in my time working there, and I can tell you that I would say it was a fraction of a percentage was purchasing
anytime
for home use.
I don't see the only time I see Makerbots are in movies. Movies have Makerbots in them. Ultimaker YouTube channels, Corridor Digital, Linus Tech Tips, although you mostly see the Prusas now. But I see YouTube channels have Ultimakers. Movies use Makerbots as props. That's
Stratasys owners have them at their facility, so that way their engineers can prototype on the Makerbot before they take it to the big boy machine and run it on the Stratasys. So they definitely do have their.
We had a replicator at work. It was a replicator 2X. The second head was stowed all the time.
There's a few ones in chat.
We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So about 4 people out of 300 people live.
I'm not saying that's a good percentage. I'm just saying that even.
I know we do have. There are a few people.
Yeah.
There are dozens of us. Dozens of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, they can form like half of or like a quarter of a soccer team or something like that.
You have a third of a print farm.
Exactly. So.
But yeah, they're not our market. They are not our market. They are totally not. So.
No, they haven't. Like you said too, they haven't been. From the time I've even really heavily been involved or was involved with that stuff, it was already beyond that. And we're talking like OG Ultimaker and maybe Ultimaker 2/2 Plus. And and then once they shifted over to the 3, which was the dual rocking heads and the
it's like $5 How much is an Ultimaker right now?
They raised prices when I was working there, and the Ultimaker, so they should still have the Yeah, they have the Ultimaker 2 Plus Connect, which is their refresh of the 2 Plus, and then they have the Ultimaker S3 and S5, and S5 is their like, S5 was a little over
You want to know how much
$6,000.
an Ultimaker is? This is how you know something's expensive. When you go to the website,
request a price.
Request a quote. The moment you see request a quote, you know it's outside of your budget.
In their defense, Nero, I know this, that Ultimaker doesn't sell 3D printers. They like add directly, so that's also why they get that information and provide it to the appropriate party. I do know that firsthand. So, but I do agree with that completely. Every time I want to see something and buy it, and it says request a quote, I'm like, it's out of my budget. There's no way. There's just no way I can afford this.
Nope, not printed solid. Raise 3D. So Raise 3Ds, they start around $3,500 for the E2 IDEX.
Oh, the E2, yeah.
Yeah, and the Pro 2 is like $6,000.
The Pro 2 is $4,000 for the 300 by 300 by 300, and it's $6,000 for the 300 by 300 by 600. It's double. It's basically take that machine and stretch it twice as tall, and then it's $2,000 more for that.
For a little bit longer extrusions and rails.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think of like that might give some justification, I don't know to the extent of that, but I'm sure shipping cost when you add 50% more, it's got to really add some weight. So again, not trying to justify for them. I think it's insanely expensive, but I would imagine just based off seeing how much it costs to ship like one of these tiny printers, like $100 to get it across the states. I can only imagine freighting a thing that weighs 140, 50 pounds. Like that's not a cheap, it's not a cheap item.
Okay, so the cheapest Makerbot is actually $1,300. That's actually cheaper. It's a sketch,
right? Yeah, it's a flash forge. It's a flash forge.
Oh, that's you know what? Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got the Replicator Plus, and that is $2,100. and that is like the cheapest like Makerbot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see it. Cool. I didn't realize I could see it on.
Yeah, I just pulled it across the screen there.
Yeah. The sketch is
yeah, these aren't home machines. These aren't home machines.
Look at look at the monoprice voxel. You're gonna look at it and say, huh, that looks just like the Makerbot sketch I just looked at. It's the exact same machine.
Monoprice voxel. Oh, but you don't get the Makerbot support with it.
You don't. You see it, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
It's the exact same
$389.
Yeah, it's the exact same.
Is it like exact same type thing, or is it like?
I think. I mean, I wouldn't put money on it, but from everything I saw when I looked at it before, it's basically 1-to-1 with a different color and think a different slicer, and that's the extent of it. Oh, I mean, they're like, yeah, I think down to each bolt placement.
Okay, let me pull them both up on screen.
Yeah, do it,
so
dude.
we got the sketch. Okay. So there's the sketch. And then this one. Yeah, so there's a sketch. Oh, it's zoomed in for whatever reason. But yeah, there's a sketch. And then here's the Makerbot. That looks, they look pretty dang close there. Yeah, not exactly the same. Not exactly the same. Not exactly the same. But
really,
still. The casing's different. The casing is different.
Okay, maybe, but I'm telling you, like at its core, I think that the components are coming off the same line.
It's NEMA 17s with some rods and some bearings and a heated bed. Like there's how many ways can you slap together a 3D printer? Let's be honest.
There's a third one I think that FlashForge makes, which is the company that's I think producing these things, and it looks nearly the same as well. So they make their own, and they also make it for everyone else. So it's just crazy, man. But yeah, I when I saw the news. If you'd asked me 3 years ago whether I thought that would ever happen, I'd say there's absolutely no way that would happen. When I saw the news, based off of like given the sort of dynamic of the 3D printing market, I wasn't even that surprised, honestly, man. Like I think, you know, basically they both have certain elements that each other want, and they've been going all these years at the same exact, like you said, market. That pool is getting smaller and smaller. Yep. So instead of competing with each other, like if you join, then you have a bigger pool that you can just work together to dividing. You wouldn't divide and conquer anymore. You would just conquer, you know. So but yeah,
and for the sake of you got to shore up your defenses because Papa Joey P's coming to town.
Yeah, dude, they've got their armor and stuff. Yeah, I don't think it's going to have much effect. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I even saw when I was reading deep into the tweets from the devs from Ultimaker that they can't say anything definitively. They don't know what a year's time is going to look like for them and stuff like that. Yeah. But given
this was all done by CEOs and people in boardrooms, right? The average person working at either of these companies probably doesn't know what's really going on.
Yeah, given the current dynamic, that I don't see any immediate changes for Cura, and I do think that even if something does happen, I don't see Cura just dying. There's so much to it. I think someone will carry the flag, whether that's old devs from Cura, whether that's community getting together and saying, hey, I know a little bit about, you know, like look at Clipper. Like Clipper's going forward.
You know what? You know who it's going to be? It'll be Creality. Creality will pick up that torch and then they'll steal it and put it on their site on Creality Cloud along with all the other stolen models.
Man, it makes the whole current dynamic of like what's happened recently with Creality makes me sad because
nosediving.
I don't know what's
just
happening.
Taken every.
I don't understand it.
I seen Naomi made a post. Apparently, Creality Cloud is like the pet project of like one of the CEOs, and he's just sunk a ton of money into it, trying to make it a thing. Because nobody uses a website unless there's stuff on the website, right? You're not going to go and put all your 3D models on, you know, Bob's 3D Model Emporium unless there's already stuff there. So how do you get stuff there? Either you do like current sites, like I'm not harping them, but like Printables gives you free shit to use their site. You earn points, you get filament, you get cups, you get swag. Fangs last year did a lot of sponsorships with creators. That both companies spent money in different ways to get you to use their site. So you either do that, or you steal shit, or you hope naturally it grows. Like Thingiverse, nobody paid to think. Thingiverse never gave anything. I think you could get paid to print models on there for a bit.
Thingiverse might have been 3D Hubs might have had ties with something at one point back in the day. 3D Hubs used to be for the average person, and then they made it where you had to be like an official, like one of their preferred
I remember
people.
on Thingiverse seeing like a get this printed or something button back in the day, but
yeah, they either
Thingiverse
do
was
or
like
have
just
tipping. They have tipping too.
That too.
I've been tipped like once. Thank you, whoever tipped.
but like they were the first, so like everyone used them, and they're still the biggest. So a lot of people still use them because everything's there. So you got to draw people off that site. Well, how do you do that? You either need some sort of incentive, promotion, or you just suddenly have a really big site filled with everything that, oh, user 4827827 made this awesome Deadpool that's exactly the same as the Eastman Deadpool apparently. Like
I think that there's three. I think there's actually three. I think that the options are either pay money, printables is essentially printables is paying money, like maybe not directly in cash, but it costs money to make mugs and t-shirts and sweaters and all that stuff. Or things, which is, sponsor us, sponsor other people, sponsor creators, which is great. They're getting paid, everyone's happy, and people are getting over. The steal route, which is what we're seeing right now, or put in the work. It takes time. Build a really good website that has an awesome ecosystem, and then people will natively, like over time, slowly migrate. But if you want that instant gratification, which is what it seems like everybody wants, you either need dollars to back it, or you have to go this route. And the thing that it bums me out, because as a company, like Crowdy's gotten a lot of slack over the years, and they've done certainly things that are questionable, but I've been a pretty big advocate. Coming from my background with what I've been through in 3D printing, their stuff was a massive step up for the whole garage.
Oh, for entry level, for getting new people into it, they
massive.
Even right now, like the S1, and I don't have one. You have one, I believe.
I do. Yeah,
it's
great.
a pretty good printer for its price. Like
for the price.
It's got the things that I recommend a newbie gets on a printer: a flex plate, bed probe. It's
auto bed
reliable,
decent extruder.
It's
totally
a good printer for everything I've seen.
It just makes me sad that the things that, like, there doesn't need to be so many revisions. It would be nice if somehow, some way they were able to make any of their machines even remotely upgradable. I'm not saying like to the extent of Prusa does, because Prusa there's a lot more 3D printable parts. We can't fabricate all this aluminum stuff, but if there was some sort of like a little bit more of a lifespan versus every 90 days, it's the next generation of the thing.
They need to hold off and just do like a yearly release. It needs to be like FIFA, okay? Like just every year.
Exactly.
You get a new,
Instead of like Duty or whatever.
So what do you got? You got Ender 3, you got Ender 3 Pro, Ender 3 S1. There's the Ender 3
V2,
Ender 3 V2,
Ender 3 V2, Ender 3 Max.
Ender 3 Max,
Ender 2,
Ender Smart,
Pro.
the CR Smart. Like,
CR
and the
Max,
thing is, like, all they are V-slot bed flingers with just either slightly longer extrusions and slightly different beds and slightly different probes. And I swear they just throw random shit in a box. It's like, okay, this is now the CR Ender.
It's getting more and more that way.
Like,
it wasn't always that way though. Like they had the Ender 2, which was a cantilever. They had the CR10, which was a big bed slinger. The Ender 3, which was a small bed slinger. Then they did the Ender 5, which was a like Ultimaker style, like bed goes up and down. Then they had Ender 5 Plus, which I thought was still fine. It's a bigger version of that with now a BL Touch. And then to me, it's only in the last like year where it's really gotten wonky.
The Ender 7 was.
I had it.
Don't you have
got rid of it. No, not anymore. I don't. Yeah, I was going to do a bunch of mods to it, but I just ultimately decided that like, with the amount of things I say, I'm gonna mod that. Nothing will ever happen. So I decided it wasn't
blew
worth
it up for YouTube views, honestly.
I saw Joel just gave away his tune.
He printed a bunch of stuff on it and they just didn't work.
Ender 7 was massively disappointing. The other one is, so Crowdy has right here, you can't really see it, but their Hallett 1, which was their resin 3D printer. I tested it out. And I thought that the hardware in my initial review, I said hardware is like phenomenal. Like the best screen I've seen on a resin printer. There's some really cool elements to it, but like the firmware on it is bunk, and the slicer is so bad it doesn't do the things it's claiming to do. And so that was my review on it. Like I've always said, like I'm definitely more of a glass half full person. I try to point out the positive, but like you can't hide the negative. Like these are the facts. I'm going to present them to you. You decide whether the bad outweighs the good, vice versa. Well, I never really revisit 3D printers unless it's like Ender 3 2 years later, something major like that.
Yeah.
But I kept getting comments on that video saying, hey, I just bought this thing. Like, you might want to look at it. Like, it's a different machine now. And so after so many comments on that video, I finally was like, all right, like, let me sit down, update the firmware, update the slicer. Dude, night and day difference. It quite literally is is, or at least was a few months ago, like my favorite resin 3D printer. They did some stuff that was pretty awesome with it. The issue I had was that they sent it out and they didn't market it as a beta. They were selling it to consumers. It wasn't a finished product. Stop doing that. Stop selling unfinished products.
Yeah, they do that a lot.
It's not.
I think Creality is like 5 different divisions, and they don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
And like every now and then, a division puts out something really good. Well, the division next door is like, hey, Ender 7. Yeah, let's put NEMA 23s with big dumb stepper drivers. So we can get.
That's right. The drivers on. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
Creality. I'll get an email from Creality every couple weeks about, hey, we're Creality. Do you want to test out a printer? And it's never the same person. And I'm just like, I've been working, or at least really. I'm like, yeah, I've done videos. Like, go look at my channel. Like, because the email will start off like, we really like your videos, yada yada. Do you want to like do a video with us? And I'm like, how can you like my channel and not know any? Like, I've done so many videos on your guys' products stemming back 5 years.
I guarantee you it's a third party. I guarantee you it's a third party that
very well
like they might be rotating through third party sites.
I don't know.
No, I've never gotten contacted by Creality. I've never gotten a what is it? Anycubic? You guys all get the Anycubic resin
printer? I have a
Cobra, or the Elegoo.
I have the Mars. I have the Saturn II right here. I saw you comment on the.
Yeah, all you guys got brand new Saturn IIs. Where's my Saturn II? I never got a Saturn II.
I can talk to my people and see. I'll get back to you.
No, I just get knockoff Ender 3 clone emails all the time. It's like, hello, we are a company you've never heard of. Do you want our completely original Ender 3 version? Wow, a 220 by 220 bed flinger? It's got V wheels? It's got a touchscreen? Oh my god!
I try to be super nice, and like when I reply to them, because like they always have a really like, it does this, it's very groundbreaking, this and that, and I say, hey, like, I don't want to like be disrespectful to you, and I appreciate you contacting me, but like due to the amount of like demand of reviews and content I'm working on, like I have to be really pick and choosy, and this is a very similar machine to X, Y, and Z, and like I'll just point them to like, hey, like I know you're saying all these things, and then the most times they'll get a rebuttal like, oh yeah, but ours has, and like the difference is so small, like our screen's rotated like this, and I'm like, okay, all right, you're not getting it, have a nice day, like thank you for reaching out. So I do get it too, and yeah, I'm okay. Like I know I still get excited about testing out these printers that are like the next generation or next version of them. If there is something different, like again, Ender 3S1 to me was like, cool. It's got their sprite extruder, which I like. It's got their built-in CR touch, because Creality has done auto bed leveling for a while, but they did it very poorly. It wasn't implemented well in the firmware. It was very, very messy implementation, just didn't save to EEPROM, didn't work correctly. They nailed it on this, in my opinion. Like they did a really good job. And then, for example, like Anycubic, their Cobra, yes, it's a bed slinger, but it's still, for the entry-level person, like it's a pretty solid bed slinger. Like it does have auto bed leveling.
Yeah, I've heard good things. It's a big machine though, right? It's a big machine. Right?
I have the Cobra. You're talking about the Cobra Max.
Oh, okay.
Cobra is the same size. Cobra is basically the Viper, which is like their Ender 3 V2 or Ender 3 S1. But instead, the main differences are it now uses a physical probe. No. It uses a proximity sensor instead of a strain relief. They got rid of the strain gauge. They also went away with the BMG to sort of like a Titan clone direct drive. And then it also, which I didn't realize at first, they also went with sensorless homing, which confused me because when I first homed the printer, it didn't home correctly, and I realized that by me tightening the belts using the tensioner, it thought that strain would it was homed already, so I had to loosen the belts.
False positive.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it confused me. I was like, why is this thing not working? And then I started looking around, and I was like, wait, there's no limit switches. And then it clicked in my head that like, I bet you it's this belt. So I do like those types of things. I don't mind because I still I think Anycubic's been in the game for a long time. Their i3 Mega was instrumental in the evolution of like desktop cheap 3D printing. And Creality also, but a lot of the other sort of copycats, like the copycats of the copycats, is where I'm like, all right, we're getting a little crazy now. Like there's no need for this. There's there's too much derivative at that point. But
I understand now why like Tom, he's doing a lot of resin on his channel lately, because in terms of at home like FDM, like there's really it's the same thing over and over with Malibu Stacy with the hat basically. It's Malibu Stacy with a hat. This is like why I like building printers, because I will say in the past like 3-4 years, the amount of new shit you've seen in open source printer design is like exploded.
Yeah, substantially.
Because there's been so much innovation in open source, and it's funny because like everything Voron has taken place since the Mark III came out. Like
Yeah.
Like everything, pretty much everything Voron designed, all 5 printers and pretty much every revision of it has come out since roughly the Mark III was 5 years. Yeah, Mark III roughly.
It's crazy how many sub communities there are within 3D printing, because again, like I would definitely say, considering that I've been making videos on 3D printing for like 7 or 8 years now, and that I know and talk to so many people in it, that I have a pretty good feeler for what's going on in the different segments of it. Voron, again, was something I was not familiar with at all until Stefan and then finding you and all of this stuff. And it went from like, I still have plenty of things to do with 3D printing. I've got this, that, and that, to like all of a sudden, like it feels like Aladdin and Jasmine. Like there's a whole new world, dude. Like I'm just saying, like Clipper has changed. Like what? I don't have to recompile firmware and flash
now,
over the micro
to be fair,
SD,
RepRap firmware does the same thing. RepRap firmware works the same way, where it's just it's basically just a config file you edit.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for Clipper, Voron would not be where it's at today. Because back in the original V2.0 days, you only had 2 options for controllers. You either had a ramps with another ramp slave to it, because there was enough extra pins on the Arduino Mega that you could actually run the extra 2 steppers on another ramps. So you slave 2 ramps together, and you were limited to 100 millimeters a second. That was as fast as you can run it, because it was 8-bit Marlin. Yeah. And then the alternative was you had to buy a Duet plus Duex, which was like a $500 setup.
Yeah, it was pricey.
It was pricey.
Yeah.
So that was your only 2 options, was either you go real cheap and real slow, or you spend the big bucks. But then Clipper came out, where you took, one second, I think my overlay is bugging out right now. Refresh cache, there we go. But then Clipper comes out and it's just take this Raspberry Pi 3, plug both ramps into it, run a little code, and boom, you're running faster than a Duet, where you're using existing hardware and you're just leveraging the power of the Raspberry Pi. And then, you know, Input Shaper comes out and all this other stuff that allows you to take any old machine, and now your controller means nothing. Back in the day, you know, I've been asked to do reviews of 3D printer controllers, and I'll do an unboxing, because once I throw it in a machine, it behaves like every other 3D printer controller. If it's 32-bit and TMC drivers. It's just an interface. It's just an interface for the Pi to do all the rest of the lifting. Yeah, I haven't played around with Smoothie or RepRap. Yeah, I haven't played around. Put one in chat if you're actually running a printer with SmoothieWare right now.
I haven't.
This is the first time Smoothie has been mentioned in a decade, in a generation.
It was an accident. My K40 COT laser that's in storage at my parents' house is actually running Smoothie. But yeah, so I haven't used Smoothie other than that, and I haven't used RepRap primarily because it was associated with the Duet board, and when I looked at the pricing of the Duet ecosystem, it was just I was like, I can't afford or justify this right now. But yeah, the opening up of Voron in terms of like, there's just so much. Like, you've got all the different printers, and that's a ton, the different printers. And then you've got community mods, and then you've got ERCF, and then you've got all of the sort of like mods on top of that. Like, I know there's like Doomcube, there's the dual like IDEX.
Micron.
There's Micron.
Go to printers for ants. Printers for ants.
So,
and it's all mini printers, and like, people are taking like the Lego and just having fun with it. And by the way, cheers,
so
Derek,
cool.
for the 10. But yeah, it's really like it's funny because for the longest time, like Voron got like the whole. And to be fair, it was kind of deserved at the time, where Voron for a while was kind of anti-mod. It was very build it as it is and don't fiddle with it. Which we did have reasons for it. It was kind of like, you know, we know it works. Don't like, because we were afraid of the system, like everything fracturing, kind of like how back when you were looking at like Hypercube Evo. You would have to like source 20 different mods to get a decent printer, and like they all had compatibility. It was kind of like build it because we know this works and don't deviate. But now it's like people have just run with it. Like so many things that are now part of the printer are derived from mods, or people on the team started with mods.
Voron, like from my experience, I don't feel that Voron's to be modded. Like I think that you build a Voron according to spec. Like it's a rock solid machine. It's a really good machine. And originally, I think that my thought process in my head was, I'm building this thing that's a pretty complex printer, and it's obviously very well engineered, and once I get dialed in, I'm not going to want to mod it. Of course, I changed my mind at least a little bit now, like after seeing so many, you know, like after breathing and eating and looking at everything else going on, there's a lot of shiny objects here and there, but it definitely, I don't feel needs it, but there's something about like the Vorons where like some of the mods are just so like gorgeous. I saw somebody in like the Voron Discord yesterday. I always randomly will go through Voron Printer Showcase or Print Showcase just to like drool a little bit.
People
it's
have
beautiful.
gone nuts with builds.
Beautiful.
Like, yeah,
I saw
having the printer where the enclosure is part of the printer itself
gorgeous
has opened up so many avenues for personalization, especially the back panel. Like the fact that there's a back panel and all the wiring is clean. Because that was one of the big things that drew me to it. It didn't look like a rat's nest. Like when you looked at the old hypercubes that people built, and on the bottom you just had a ramp sitting there with wires everywhere, and like the knockoff AliExpress power supply just bolted to a 2x4. It's like
my Fulgurtech 2020 looked like hell. Yeah. I mean, it was my fault. I probably could have done a way better cable management, but it looked really bad. And the Vorons both have performance as well as like serious sex appeal. Like they're gorgeous looking printers, man. I mean, they're performance looking printers, but they're very great looking as well. And the like, I mean, just yesterday I was looking through and I saw a conversation where someone was making a replacement front plate for the Voron 0.1, and all it was a low polygon looking one to match the new like afterburner or the stealth burner type thing. And I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Like it's just small things like that, but it's the community is really fun. And I was a little bit like worried at first, sort of like what it was going to be like, because like back then there was some stuff like around the time I got into it there was like a little bit of like, oh, the Clipper community and Voron community is like not super nice type thing. Is like I saw some questions or comments about that. The experience I've had is that some of the nicest people I've met in my entirety of being in 3D printing have come from the Clipper as well as the Voron community. So I think it's just like any community. Every community has like, like I see all the time, like there's this one group on Facebook.
I think we're at 32,000 people on the Discord now.
Yeah.
And then the Facebook has like 20,000 people, and the Facebook's completely unofficial. So the Facebook's like the Wild West.
Community ran.
Well, we have a few people from the mod team on, like the admin team on the Facebook mod group, but I think it's more like just in case, like to really, if something really goes crazy over there. But the Voron Facebook group is the Wild West, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, the Discord is the only official like avenue or venue for the team.
Yeah.
Hey, Maker
everyone
Viking.
I've talked to that's come in though, whether it's via a stream I'm doing, whether it's someone on the official team, whether it's whatever. I mean, like everyone has been nothing but super pleasant, willing to share, willing to help, I mean, it's been such a positive experience. So I've, which has also been an enticing reason to want to get into it. Like, it doesn't feel like anybody that is in the space is like trying to gatekeep or trying to be like, it's just, everyone wants to help, and maybe not everyone has the answers, but they'll at least try to point you in the right direction. Hey, I don't actually know, but like so-and-so, didn't you just do this? Cool. Let me get you in touch with this person. So yeah, there were quite a few people when I was building the first 0.1 where I got like kind of stumped on a few areas, and every single time, hey, I pop into the Discord, you know, V0.1 open or builders or whatever the specific one is. Hey, is this supposed to look like this? Oh no, like it's backwards, or you know. So like again, I understand, like, yeah, just to me, the combination of having the build manual, which in my opinion is solid. It took me a bit to learn, especially with like, if there's a circle or you see a random floating object, that means that we inserted a T-nut. Like that was not very obvious
the manuals
to me.
have gone through, the V2 manual just got updated with the V2.4 R2, but a lot of the manuals, like now we're putting a lot more, like for the longest time, Vorons were meant for people that like building 3D printers. So when it first kind of got started, the manuals were kind of, they were like IKEA-ish, so there's not a lot of text in the manuals because we have a lot of builders worldwide and translating into all the different languages.
Very difficult.
It's just, you know, make it pictographs. That's why the manual's like 150 something pages. But they weren't as detailed as they are now because it was kind of assumed you kind of knew what you were doing. But with like ever since lockdowns and everything, we had a massive influx of new people. Like when Stefan made his video on it and Tom started talking about it, Joel's name dropped it a few times, and then that's when like, okay, now it's like actually we're getting people that want to build their first 3D printer, and it's a Voron. So like the V2 manual got a lot of hate for a while because it was the oldest manual for a while. The V2.4 manual was from 2020, early 2020, until 2.4 R2 came out and was updated. So
is it multiple? Is it a because there seems to be, at least from the like SwitchWire in 0.1 that I've looked at, and even the ERCF, which I don't know how that fits in the equation, but like there's certainly like a style or a theme or a standard in terms of the look of it.
The official manuals, except I'm trying to remember, Dunar has done all the recent manuals.
Okay.
I think the Enraged Rabbit Carrot Feeder is an unofficial manual because the Enraged Rabbit Carrot Feeder is not officially Voron. It obviously it's designed by a guy who's on the Voron team, but he got on the team for that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. It just looks like from what I've looked through.
I can't remember if the V01 is Nemgria, or he's the designer. I can't remember if I'm pretty sure Dunar did all the recent manuals, but like it's it's not like they're all designed at the same time, right? So it's like some things have been learned along the way.
They certainly, though, have like a specific
they all use the same
styling.
Program. Yeah, they all use the same program for making it.
Yeah, very similar styling to them, which is it's a nice styling, and it's just I mean, I think one of the more difficult elements of learning to build a Voron is that I'm very much so the type of person where I'll read the first 2 pages of the manual and then I'll figure it out, or like quickly look through it. You can't do that. Everything that's stated.
Maybe on like a legacy, maybe. Yeah. But like a V0, you're just gonna hate yourself if you do that.
Yeah. Every single block of text that was on that manual, where I read it and was like, huh, okay, cool, move on. Oh, that's why that was it. There was always those aha moments of that's what that meant. Like, so I think one of the things I stated was, if you see something in the manual, it's not there just for the hell of it. It serves a purpose. Like, to figure out why
it's really funny looking at the manuals, because I'm on the team, so I built a lot of these printers before manuals existed. So it was like, here's the beta CAD and the beta parts. Kind of just figure it out looking at the CAD, and you would build it, and then the manual would come out and you go through it and be like, well, that's a hell of a lot simpler than what I did.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's get some viewer questions, because we're already running over here, but I don't know if you want to keep going, but I'm
whatever.
Okay for a little bit.
I'm cool for whatever, so I can hang a little bit. Yep.
With the recession coming, does Voron have pricing power? Voron is not a company. We have no control over anything in terms of pricing. People make kits. Anyone can make a kit. If you want to make cheap kits, go for it. But we have no control over that. So, unfortunately, the price is the price, and we can't really call up, FormBot or LDO and be like, "Hey, can you knock 10% off?" We have no power there. So, it is what it is. We just make shit and throw it out into the wild. Woodfill PLA Voron, will it shatter or melt first?
Don't talk
Probably termites. Probably get termites first.
I just did a video on how to print with woodfill, and
I have yet to print with woodfill. I've never printed with woodfill.
Don't use. I just used timberfill, which is like a premium wood filament. Other than polypropylene, the wood filament I just made a video on how to print with is the hardest material I've ever printed with. Ever.
I've got some Sparta 3D wood. Light.
Yeah, I'm sure you're fine. I just did a video, dude. I mean, I can't even put into words. If you're, it was rough, man. Like, I mean, I've printed everything from like carbon fiber nylon, glass-filled nylons, polypropylenes, regular nylons, all the different TPUs, like some weird obscure like lightweight foaming stuff, and this wood fill, which was the first exotic filament I ever printed with back in 2015, was the most difficult material ever. Like, clog city, dude. I tried every single thing to get even a remote profile working, and the only thing that finally worked was swapping to a 0.6 nozzle, and then I finally got
wood fill. You got to use a bigger nozzle. It clogs up.
But I've done 0.4 in the past. Like, it depends on some. So yeah, some materials, like some wood fill, for example. This is probably like 5 years old. This Hatchbox this I was able to do with a 0.4. I think that it's a difference in the fibers used, maybe the size of the fibers that are used. And like, for example, I think this one specifically, if you print a temp tower with it, the different temps will give you different tones of the color, while the one that I had, it didn't do that. So it's kind of cool because, again, based off of the spectrum where you print it, whether it's like very low 195 to higher 220, you can get sort of different shades depending on what you want. But you couldn't do that with what I had.
I have never printed with wood fill before. I have the spool here. You know what? I might use it on the One of those Diamondback nozzles, I think.
It's pretty, dude. This is one of the. This is from Joe from Breaks and Makes or
nice.
3D Maker Noob.
Oh.
Yeah, it was his design. I saw it when it came out and was like, I want to print this with wood filament one day. And I finally, this was the whole goal of that spool, and it's beautiful. Like, it looks like wood, smells like wood almost. But dude, it was one of those videos where I told myself, this will be a pretty simple video and it'll be a lot of fun. And I'm just sitting there like, why do you hate me, filament? Like, why? What, you know? It's like everything that could go wrong went wrong. So
let's see, what else? Open floor, guys. Got any questions? Let's see here. Let me scroll up a bit because I'm sure we missed some, and I apologize
if we missed. Earlier, yeah, I looked at Reddit, but we were having conversation. I didn't want to stop the flow, but I did see a lot of pretty cool comments earlier on.
Oh yeah, the Legacy manual is the best. Oh yeah, the Legacy has the best manual of all of Voron's.
Is that sarcasm? I can't.
There is no
okay,
manual
yeah.
for the Legacy.
I was like, I don't feel like that's.
Here's the CAD. Have fun. It's meant to be like a throwback to like the original, like old school. Like it's a resto. If you ever look at the Legacy, it's a resto mod. It's meant to be like an old like 2016 to 2018 style printer, but built with like the nice shit we have today.
It's smooth rods, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've looked
rods.
at it. Yeah, it definitely looks like a like sort of the oh god, the new Bronco, like a tribute to the old.
Yeah,
like
it's
new,
meant to be a resto mod. It's meant to be like an old like C3 Corvette, but with air conditioning and modern GPS nav and a modern transmission. Like it's meant to be an upgrade for if you still were running like a V1.5, but it's meant to be a classic build because that's what it's designed for.
It looks pretty cool. I mean, I can see why like because in my opinion, from the Vorons in terms of like popularity for what I've seen, it seems like the 2.4 or 2 or whatever seems to be number one, right? Like in terms of
that's like what people think of now.
And then I would think probably 0.1 based off of the pricing and the availability of kits. Then I would think probably the Trident, then the Switchwire, then the Legacy. That's
Legacy is not common built.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Thoughts on the SKR3 Easy board? We actually were talking about this just before stream. That's the SKR with the one with So I'm going to answer that how I answered that earlier. Look up XKCD 927. that is my thoughts. Basically, we have one standard. It works fine. We need a better standard, so now we have 2 standards.
I see.
Well, actually 3 because you can also put the drivers right on the board. Personally, I'm a fan of slapping the drivers right on the board. I'm not a fan of step sticks. I'd rather just have the driver right on the board.
A lot of people state though that they're like, because when I've talked about like, oh, I'll never do that because if one fails or whatever. I'll tell you this: in all the 3D printing I've done, I think I've had one fail, and it was back in the day on a Rams board.
Yep.
Like they don't. If you've got at least somewhat decent cooling, or like you're not doing something insane, the likelihood of it happening, and again, not saying it can't happen, but it is not as common as
you'll blow a MOSFET. People blow MOSFETs for fans and heaters all the time. You'll blow a MOSFET well before you actually blow a stepper driver. Yeah, in my opinion. Like I've never blown a stepper driver ever.
I think there was one along, but again, it was the beginning of me getting into 3D printing. It's funny. CRS1 asked ERCF tips for ModBot, and one of my actual questions I wrote down on here was ERC tips for me. I guess because I'm sure it's a very long discussion, and I know that Steve is also building one, and I've been like watching on some of his Sunday streams. But one of the questions I had that was a side question to that was, from your experience with printing, assembling, calibrating, and doing to the video you did, what would you say was the most difficult part of it? Was it the actual mechanical build, or was it the calibration and getting Clipper with all the macros and everything to play nicely?
I'm gonna say my experience will be different from yours because as I was building mine, the manual was being finalized. So there is a lot of things in the manual that I did out of order because the manual was actively being worked on while I was building mine. Especially the assembly wasn't the hard part. The assembly was fine. But when it got to the final calibration and going through the steps to get everything set up, I was kind of like all over the place because it wasn't all in order on the manual. I was looking at other sources, especially with like setting up the expander board and whatnot. So now, just straight up follow the manual. Like I think I even put like comments on the video. Like if you're watching this video, just follow the manual because this video is out of date. But probably the actual software wrangling to get it all set up. But it's a lot easier because it's just do this. Okay, now do this. And then once you get it all done, but get a buffer system. That is my problem, is I still don't have a good buffer system.
That
so
was
my
part of the
biggest
reason you got the rep box, right?
The rep box I was hoping would work like a gravity buffer system where I would just let the extra filament hang down. The problem is that works a little too good, and what happens is it pulls the filament ever so slightly out of the enraged rabbit carrot feeder. So when it goes to refeed it back in, it doesn't grab it. So I was hoping I could just kind of like let the full filament just hang there in the air between, but it doesn't work, unfortunately. It works okay. But every like hundredths change, I need to come down and fiddle with it. So I don't. The thing is, I don't print a lot of multi-material. It's just not what I normally do. So I use it still, but what I use it as is I just keep like 6 spools of my most commonly used filaments up there, and then I just print regular PLA on it and just use that to pick whatever color I'm printing. So if I'm printing, but the problem is I don't even use it now, because when it comes to PLA, I'm printing it on printers that I'm testing right now.
Yeah.
So it's
sitting.
Yeah.
For me, it's more of
and get the right M3 washers. Make sure you have good M3 washers. Apparently.
It's good to know. For me, a huge part of it, building it, is also the kind of challenge behind it, right? Like I do anticipate I'll use it, but will it be very often? Not necessarily. But for me, it's like I think that the design behind it's awesome, which makes me want to build it. I think it'll be challenging. I'd still like to learn more about Clipper and the way the macros all sort of interface with each other, and it just seems like this is the great way to try to torture myself, but yet like have something cool on the other side of that fence, you know? So that's kind of the reason.
Macros for it are actually quite fun, because Clipper, a lot of the macros are actually just straight up Python code. Because Clipper, you can actually just have Python code in your config, and else if statements and everything. It's actually really nice. Because I seen somebody has it working with RepRap. Yeah, somebody has it working with RepRap firmware, and it's a ton of macros. It's just macros on macros on macros.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember seeing your screen share during a stream with it, and was just like, that's a lot of buttons.
Yeah, and that's why you don't fiddle with it. You have the little part up top that you fiddle with, and then you don't touch anything below this line. Felix, $10. Cheers, appreciate it. A couple nice beverages. I do have some whiskey left, I think. I'll go dip into that after. Appreciate good chat from both of you. Thank you. Brandon here. How much work would it take to say a V0 so that it kinematics and electronics are tuned 90 to what you wanted to place it close to the wall or bookshelf? How much work would it take to say a V0 so that the kinematics and electronics are turned 90? So if you wanted, you could place it close to a wall, like if you have a bookshelf. You can already place it, like, here, let me go main screen. Like, this is a micron, but it's, functionally the same as a V0. You can put it right up against the wall. Like, I don't know what the question is. Like, everything in a Voron is self-contained. Like, that's one of the things with a Voron, is they are fully contained within their frame. So you can put it right up. Now, the only thing you may have to worry about is like the filament coming in, like a Bowden or whatever. Yeah, you can just move that to the side. You can have the filament come in at any side. Like on my machines, because they're crammed close together, I have my spool holders on top. I actually use switch wire spool holders on top, so that way I can shove these right up against the wall, basically, because I don't have room to put the spool holders behind. And I don't like having them on the side, because then I could push the machines right up to each other. So yeah, the actual machine, the frame of the machine is everything. Everything, that is one of the design criteria of a Voron machine, is that everything is within, like I'm using the Micron here as an example, but everything is within the frame, and then you just put panels on it. So it's not like a Prusa where you need to put it in a box to enclose it or put a hat on it. The Legacy is the only one that needs a hat, but that's because it's the Legacy.
I wish, I guess you could with the Micron the way it's looking right now, but like the one thing that would be cool, which is certainly like after building the switch wire with the enclosure that's kind of held together with the brackets and the, why can't I think of what the tape's called?
The switch wire enclosure is a little special because it's a switch wire. Like if you notice, like the switch wire is actually much bigger than it needs to be. Like if you actually look at the bottom frame of it, it does not need to be that big. The reason the frame, like the bottom part of the frame is that big, is so that way the bed does, so the bed doesn't move out of bounds. It's not like a Prusa where the bed over travels the front and back of the printer. On a switch wire, the bed stays within the frame, so that way you can just slap panels on it. And yeah, the connectors on the top corners are a little janky, but it works.
No, I mean, what I think when I was more getting at was like the enclosure itself is actually surprisingly sturdy. It took me a bit to figure out how to even put it together. Steve's stream was instrumental. I didn't see any documentation. I was like, what the hell? Like, where does it all go? So I watched his, and it was able to be put together. The only thing I was saying is that it would be cool if like they were all sort of stackable. Like, I don't know how that would work in terms of like motion. It probably would not, because the vibration, right? It would just get worse the further up you go. But seeing the enclosure, since we were talking about the MK3S plus the enclosure for that, just the idea of stackable for farm type stuff just seems cool. But I get that in theory, you have a machine that's got some vibrations, you have a machine on top of it vibrating some more, and like it's a losing battle, you know.
You either need to go and have everything be stupidly over-engineered and rigid, like how the Prusa farm is, where it's a solid, like, monolithic construction.
Yep.
Or you like, if you're stacking them like Lego, there's nothing to like, if you notice, like, even my benches are bolted to the wall. Like, these are bolted to the wall because even then they still shake when, you know. It's a lot different when you got a little lightweight bed slinger moving around versus a Core XY pushing 10K XLs at 300 millimeters a second. They are different beasts.
It's a different beast. It just in like my mind, having some sort of like rack system would be cool. But yeah, I understand that it's definitely.
The V0 has the electronics and power switch on the back. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so does this one. I think there is a mod to put it on its side. Because on the V0, okay, on the Micron, it's not a good example because there's all your electronics. You ain't got much room there. But on a V0, the electronics, the bottom's actually pretty open. So I do believe there is a mod to move the inlet to the side. I believe there is a mod. Yeah, so you have room right there to easily put it to the side. So I believe there is a mod there. How do both of us have the same color wall? Mine is like Battleship Gray, I believe. I don't know.
Wait, we don't have the same color wall. Does it look like it? No, it's lighting.
It's a lighting.
Yeah,
I think mine's darker.
Yeah, my wall's definitely like a dusty white. So.
Yeah, there's yours. There's mine. Yeah, mine's like dark gray.
It's not this. Based off the lighting, it looks like mine's gray, but it's purely cinematic effect. It's not real.
I have a bed slinger on top of a couple lax tables, and it does the hula. Yep. Yeah, I mean, skirt mod. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen a mod that moves the inlet to the side. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's the reason they want it, because they're saying that they couldn't have it up against the wall because the outlet would stick out. They would need at least a few inches or so behind it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I forgot about the outlet. So how many printers do you have right now?
Not as many if you'd asked this question 2 weeks ago. I actually got rid of probably 7 in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, because you're moving soon.
Yeah, I donated 4 of them, sold 1 of them, 2 of them. So yeah, not nearly as many. As of right this second, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 right now. 18 in the living room.
Okay, you only got like 2 less than me. I've got some in the other room, but.
Yeah, I had again more, but I told Aaron, well, like as part of moving, the cost of the moving vehicles right now, especially from California, are absolutely disgusting. And so we're leaving a lot of our furniture because it actually saves us money to leave the furniture that's pretty inexpensive that we got, from like IKEA or whatever years ago, just buy it out there. So yeah, some of the Vorons are all coming with me. Some of the other like machines, like the FL Sun SR, like because it's a Delta and it's my only Delta, like I remember seeing Deltas. It was one of the first printers I saw when I got into 3D
don't use mine, but I like it. I have one too.
Yeah.
I use it to show people printing sometimes because it's very cool to watch, but
very cool to watch.
It's not efficient compared to my other print. That's why it's in the other room.
Yeah, they're not a very good use of space in terms of the height, but like the spider system of the moving is really cool. And for the sake of you doing video stuff as well, they are great machines for making time lapses because the bed's not whipping around, so you can just watch it build up. So yeah, I don't think I'll get rid. I need to always have one Delta, even if they're not super common, because they're very cool. And just watching them work, it almost looks like some sort of futuristic spider moving around. Like they're just rad. So but yeah, a lot of the other machines, Prusa's coming too. I don't know, man. I told Aaron, like, in theory, I want to keep them all. In actuality, I will not keep them all. So I don't know.
My problem is I built a lot of mine, so it's like, they're my
babies.
I don't know if I could, they're my babies.
I don't know if I could do it. Yeah, I certainly, like, the 3 Vorons that I've built are by far the most, like attached I feel to it. Like if I lost it or it was like if it broke, like I would feel sad. Like I don't know, man. Like part of it too is you build yours also on stream, and so like I kind of have like memories during the building process of it. So it's a lot more to it than like looking at it is sort of like the result of this like this crazy beautiful creation thing. So yeah, I also would have a much more difficult time getting rid of a machine that I know that I put like blood, sweat, and possibly tears into. You know, it's just a different versus just another bed slinger type printer that's like the rest of them. You know.
Mike was asking, do you think the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder would print TPU effectively? It should be fine because you got to remember the ERCFA doesn't actually do any printing. All it does is push filament down to the tool head and pull it back up. So in theory, it would be printing just like it normally would with a direct feed setup. I got an LGX in mine, so it should print fine. As long as it could push it down, you may have to lower the feed rate so it doesn't try to push the filament down as fast because it is a flexible filament depending on how soft it is. But in theory, you should be okay. The issue you'd be running into is make sure you do a big purge, because the problem with any single nozzle multi-material setup is you have the risk of contamination between different plastics, right? So if you're trying to print like a soluble and an insoluble material, you really need to purge the hell out of it, because otherwise you'll leave little bits of the soluble and the insoluble and whatnot, which you don't want.
The elasticity would be the concern for me, just between the being it grabbed at the ERCF and it at the other extruder. Like when it's moving out, once it gets beyond the pinch mark, it will then retract quite a bit because it's no longer being pulled.
Well, here's the thing with the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder, it's smart. So if it says, oh, I need to feed X amount of filament, and because it's got an encoder on it, it actually measures how much filament it feeds and pulls out. So if it doesn't feed enough, it will compensate for it. It'll go like, oh, I meant to retract 200 millimeters. I only measured 190. Let me try the other 10. Did it work? Okay, it worked, and we'll continue on. So it has error correcting built into it. So it actually probably will handle it better than like a dumb system like a
separate thing though. That is awesome to at least know, because I don't know the whole like ins and outs of the system, but with TPU in general and retraction and supports on TPU and all of the things with TPU, the idea of trying to dual color or multicolor sling TPU is absolutely terrifying to me. I mean, I'm just saying, like, getting a solid TPU print is awesome, and trying to get supports with TPU, good luck, and trying to get really gnarly retractions and overhangs, good luck, but trying to do dual, like, I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think
you could. Actually, in Prusa Slicer, I think you can have per filament settings. Couldn't you do like a setting for like that one filament? You can have per. Here, let me pull it up here. Yeah, let me.
Are you saying though that it would be like a TPU with a PLA, or are you saying to do multiple TPUs at the same time?
Are you talking about like compatibility between like actually printing it or having it like stick together?
No, I'm just saying that TPU in general is not like the easiest material to print with compared to like PLA or PTG or even ABS. Like there's so many more variables. Yeah, and so I'm just saying that like I would say that you need to be the person that has mastered single extrusion printing with TPU before you consider trying to dual sling TPU. That's more what I'm getting at. I do think that as far as settings go, you can certainly get it where they mesh together in that regard. It's more the retraction and how clean do the prints look and stuff like that, because it's just, it also, TPU is such a blanket statement. Like, is it stiffer, 98A? Is it like Ninja Flex stuff that's more like 85A shore hardness? So there's so many factors involved with TPU, but I don't think it would be the first material I want to print with.
This was on the V Minion. This was the first TPU print off the V Minion, and it's
that's awesome.
That's
a super freaking cool TPU print, man.
Yeah, it's the like the Clover Dragon, and it's flexible. It's straight up, you know. It's TPU. It's not the softest TPU in the world, but it's TPU. So yeah, in Prusa Slicer, you can go in Prusa Slicer and have per filament. So if you don't want to run retractions on the filament, like that one filament that is TPU, you can turn it off. So if you know how to print TPU, you could throw in TPU too. Like if you want to print like a shoe with a flexible sole, go for it with that. Just be careful with purging, because you might risk contamination of different filaments. That's the only thing I could really think of, because it's a single nozzle setup.
That's a pretty impressive, I mean, like, I can't see the level of stringing or detail per se on it, but like from what I can see, that's an impressive TPU print, man. Let me see once the camera changes. Okay, I see it. Yeah, that's a pretty damn good TPU print. You
Like
said
there is a bit of
V-Minion?
strain. There is a bit of strain.
Sure, but I'm just saying though, like that's a complex model. Like a lot of the TPU printing I've done is like, I mean, granted, like this does have some mesh to it, but it's like phone cases, it's gaskets, it's little feet for things. I've tried stress testing a few times, but just like that certainly has more retraction.
Oh, it's got a ton of retractions in it.
Yeah, going from object to object. So
this was on the V-Minion.
It's a V-Minion, right?
Yep, using their default Prusa Slicer profile in whatever the default TPU setting is. It's got a Dragon High Flow and it's got an Orbiter V2 extruder.
Oh, interesting.
Which the Extruder is dual drive and it has fatter gears than a BMG, so a little bit more grip.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't ran.
I don't normally print TPU. I swear, I do one TPU print every time I do a printer review. Because like, okay, I gotta do one on the KS or KPS next or KP3 next.
I don't even do that, man. Like if it's
a
direct
drive
printer,
setup, I do.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was gonna say if it's that's the that was the statement I was gonna say. If it's a Bowden, I will typically I've been able to print TPU with a Bowden extruder, but I usually tell people if you are wanting to print a good amount of TPU, I certainly would not opt for a Bowden over a direct drive. But yeah, if it's a direct drive, I also will try to just throw one on there. But the as far as extruders go, like I don't have much experience with like the latest extruders. Like LGXs, I haven't used the LGX Lite. I haven't used the LGX. Haven't used any of the orbiters. Haven't used the.
They're nice.
Oh, starts with an S? I think it starts with an S. What's the extruder I'm thinking of that has like 3 different versions of it? And someone was throwing them on the V0s. It's
Sherpa.
Serp, yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah, I haven't used any of those.
Yeah, I've got an LGX Lite that is going to go on a V0 at some point. I got a V0.0 that I'm going to do a bunch of community mods on instead of upgrading it to a V01. So that's going to get an LGX Lite. But right now, my switch wire, Toasty Boy, and this V2 right here have full size LGXs in them, and they are rock solid. The V-Minion has an LDO Orbiter V2, and that works pretty damn good. This has got a mini stealth burner in it on the Micron here, and then
I like the color palette you went with on that. It's a really nice looking like.
Oh yeah, this came out great. I still got to put the back panel on. I still got to put where is it? It's somewhere around here. I got to put the back panel on for tomorrow's stream.
Black on the panel?
No, it's where did I put it? Oh, it's on the floor. Oh, silver.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
nice, dude. Yeah, that thing's adorable. That thing looks really good. Yeah, I love the color palette you went with in the white frame or the white extruder.
It actually worked out. Yeah, the white frame with the teal and the dark blue actually worked out really good. I'm super happy how that came out.
I have an LGX Lite on its way finally that I ordered from Fabrico for the Voron 0.1, but like you've only said good things about LGX, and then G Funny, who I saw in chat, and also DC, who both have quite a few Vorons, are always swearing by the LGXs as being like just rock solid. So I don't think I've heard from anybody, be it content creator, be it just someone that 3D prints a lot, I don't think I've heard anything bad about the LGXs.
Put it this way, if you have a BMG extruder, the upgrade isn't as big. But the LGX, it's like, you know, it's not, but if you have anything less than a BMG, it's a pretty damn good upgrade. It's a very solid extruder. It's got easily repeatable tension. That's the big thing on it, because it's got the little clicky.
It's a lever,
when you adjust the tension, it clicks into position. So there's like 4 levels of tension.
Versus the knob where you're trying
it's fully
to figure out
repeatable,
where
so you
you're
don't have to worry about that.
Cool.
The feed path is really clean. I don't think I've ever had like filament, like I've had it on some of the afterburners back in the day where like if you're pulling out filament, it's a little stringy, a little bit gets stuck in there and then it jams it up and whatever. Never had that issue with the LGXs. They're just solid. They're just solid. And even like the one I got in Toasty is like routinely printing like at 300C and it's fine.
It's insane. So. Yeah, I'm excited to. Well, again, I'm going with the Lite for the V0 because of just the tool head size. But for the switch wire, it's going to get the full size LGX in it. I'm just waiting for the stealth burner final.
Yeah, they sent this to me a while ago and it's still sitting in the box. But yeah, I got the LGX Lite right here.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'm stoked to see Bondtech. I mean, I met when I went to Murph 2018. I got to meet. I got to meet the team, and I was really pumped because it's a Swedish company, and my family, my mom's side's all from Sweden, so I know a little bit of Swedish, and like was able to just talk to them a little bit. So I was excited. I was like, oh, I'm a Swedish family. And then Daniel Nere was there too, the Benchy creator, also Swedish guy.
Nice.
Yeah, that was awesome. But talking to them and their team and their products and stuff like that, I'm excited to see that they're still innovating and making new things, because there's a lot of companies that sure have made a great product, but it's one thing to make a great product, and it's another thing to keep innovating
Continuously
and continue
upgrade,
taking the bar higher. Yeah. So the LGX to me was like awesome, guys. Like you guys are you still got it type thing, you know?
Yeah, the LGX Lite, like it's funny how all of a sudden like all of a sudden you take a NEMA 17 circular motor with a spur gear on it, and now everyone's doing extruders with that, because people are realizing like you don't need the big chunky motor if you gear it down, and and you save so much weight. You know, I'm not a person that chases grams on the tool head anyways, but I know some people do.
I also feel that.
Mike, cheers for the 5. Thank you for taking the time to answer me. You guys rock. Cheers.
Yeah, I also. Again, if I had the choice of a lighter tool head versus heavier, sure, I'd opt for the lighter, but it's not like something that I will lose sleep over. You know,
Input Shaper has kind of reduced...
Change the game for that a bit.
Printers have gotten more solid, and we've had the ability to compensate for the issues. So it's not like we've got, you know, acrylic frame printers anymore. We like these things are,
they're sturdy.
You know, these are sturdy machines. And they've got good motion systems on linear rails, and you've got software and firmware that compensates for any ringing to a degree. So yeah, you're still going to get ringing at some point, and the more aggressive an input shaper you run, you get rounded corners. There are always downsides to everything. You're never going to get a machine that will be 100% perfect. You will always have to make a decision at some point.
Sacrifice.
But like I seen, was it the EVA 3 came out, and I haven't really looked into it too much. And
I saw screenshots.
So I seen how many comments were like, "Oh, they're going backwards. It's heavier now," and it's like, yeah, but it's probably heavier for a reason. It's probably like I've only built one EVA so far, and it's the one on my V-Minion, and I can't remember how many parts, because some of these parts are super thin and fragile. Like when it's fully together, it's not too bad, but like there are a lot of parts that are really easy to break on it. So I'm assuming they beefed it up a bit. Plus, they got fancy lights in it. So
you did. I can't remember, because I know that they're typically. Their machines are typically in PTG. Did you do PTG, or did you go with ABS on it?
I go ABS. I went ABS. I printed everything 100, like scale to scale, and most of it was okay. There were a few parts that were a little too tight, and then I mentioned that on their Discord, and they said print it at 100.5% scale. And it worked. It was fine. Just upsize it ever so slightly, and it's enough for ABS.
Yeah. Well, even I was just thinking though that as far as some of the thinness and the parts breaking could also be attributed to the ABS though, because like PTG inherently has a bit more flex, you know, so you have a little bit more margin for error if you're like shoving something in slightly different. So I'm sure that didn't make it any easier of a build, but the tool head, I haven't again dove into it either. Rat rig is something I've always been kind of interested in, but like I'm currently living in Voron land, and like there's too much for me to cover all at the same time.
I've trying to branch out, because that is Tom calls me the Voron guy, because that's 90% of my channel is that. But that's why I've got this isn't a Voron, but it's close enough. Yeah. But
to the untrained eye though, to the untrained eye, that is a Voron. I'm just saying,
it's a mini one. But I've got the V-Minion. I built the Prusa now. I've got a second. I got a Frusa in the box there. I am trying to branch out to other builds. I would like to build that little V-Minion, or that little V-Core. I have like a little printer kit right now. I'm all about little printers right now. And it's totally not because I have absolutely no room, and I'm still trying to figure out where the Prusa XL is going to go. But I'm all about little printers right now. There's the VZBot 235 that looks interesting. So there's a few small to mid-sized printer kits that I'm trying to that I'm keeping eyes on.
The VZBot that you just talked about, is that, I think that's the guy that I follow on
Vez 3D.
YouTube. Yeah, it's got like a chain crossbar looking thing that he's been showing me. It's like a crazy
the only thing that I've got
hotend
against that printer, it looks like he's going with a lot of custom components on it.
Gotcha.
Like a lot of machine stuff, a lot of carbon, which nothing against that, but it's like, it looks more commercial than like an open source project. I guess there are like printable variants for everything, so you could just build it with off the shelf stuff. But like, if you're gonna go all in, you go all in. But we'll see.
Have you seen the hotend on there? It's
yeah,
very interesting.
The LSD.
It's like, yeah, is that what it's called?
The long schlong. Yeah.
Is that what it's really called?
Apparently.
Oh my God. Yeah,
so here's the funny thing. He was showing that off, and I come from a plastic injection mold background. I was a tool and mold maker for 7 years.
Yeah.
And that is a hot end drop. Like, I guess it is custom machined, but if you've ever worked with an injection mold, that's something you can buy. It's an injection mold nozzle drop, essentially. It's a hot drop.
Interesting.
So that, like, I have one in my toolbox at work, like one that was scrap, and that you can push crazy amount of plastic through it, but it's meant for like injection molding. Like, it's meant for just shoving plastic like into a mold.
Tons, yeah. Not very cleanly or very precisely. Oh, I guess precisely, but it's the mold. The mold would, I would imagine,
you have a mold pushing with thousands of tons per square inch of plastic through it. So obviously this is miniaturized, so it's going to just have filament being pushed by an extruder. But that is what that basically looks like. It's a hot drop from a nozzle runner system, essentially.
I still think it's quite cool, though, just given that I love seeing innovation, regardless of whether it's repurposing. Like we just talked about, you know, that things coming to 3D printing world have been like, yeah, CNC's had this for like a decade. Why are you guys so late to the party? It's still cool to see it, even if it is something that's like already existing. Watching it jump around with like the insane acceleration on his machine, I'm like, that's pretty freaking rad looking. Not saying that I need it, not saying that like I would use it as a standard thing, but I do, like, there's certainly a cool factor to it, and some of the parts quality I've been seeing coming off of it are like, yeah, that's a damn good looking part, you know?
Yeah, let me pull up a quick picture here. Yeah, there we go. Let me bring it close. Okay, open image. So yeah, this is called a nozzle hot runner system, and you can see the hot drops right there. So guest, and you're gonna be taking over. There we go. Yeah, that's it right there. So that's a manifold system and an injection mold. So each one of these would be a separate drop. So either different points in the same cavity, or if you had like multiple cavities. So these are nozzle drops. These are something that's common in injection molding.
It looks super similar.
Yeah, because it's basically you have a metal, and then you have the heater wire that's wrapped around it, and then you have like a sleeve of some sort. And then the plastic goes through the middle, and then you have, usually the nozzles themselves are fixed. Normally the nozzles are fixed because the actual,
like it's part of it. It's like
yeah, it's part of it. You're not changing sides because it's designed with whatever size in mind. And then what they actually have is something that I would love to see in 3D printing, but it'll probably never happen, is you actually have what's called a valve gate. So you have a pin in there that actually automatically, like, instantly shuts off and opens up flow. Because you have it, and it's an injection mold. How do you have to stop the flow somehow and open it up the flow? So you have a valve gate pin that automatically shuts the flow off. The problem is these are this big. How do you scale that down to a 0.4 millimeter nozzle? That ain't gonna happen.
It would be freaking awesome for.
Oh, it'd be amazing. That was something I actually like. I spent a night talking to Sanjay about it back a while ago, and it was like, it was just like, yeah, it'd be cool, but you can't do that. I'm like, no, you can't do it, but it'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, even like any running materials like PTGs or TPUs, the retraction side of it. Also, for not needing to have any more like a ooze shield for like the filament from a second nozzle that basically is dripping. You would just close it off. Yeah. I mean, never say never, but I certainly taking something that's complex and big is making it work like that is one thing. Taking it and miniaturizing it and making it affordable and reliable is a very different beast, you know? Yeah,
somebody's like, oh, it required solenoids. I've seen hydraulic powered one, pneumatic powered one, the electric motors that push in a line or whatever they're called, linear actuators. I've even seen like servo driven ones. Like they're different companies manufacture them different ways. The thing is they usually have to take a hot environment. So they're like mounted right on top of the manifold that has molten plastic flying through it. Yeah. So
I'm curious to see what sort of the next, because like I said, you know, just looking back 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe 5 now, but when the Ender 3 first came out, like for me that was wow, like we're at the next tier. Like it's no longer acrylic. I didn't have to spend 8 hours of my life building this thing. I just put in 2 screws, hit print. Here's my lucky cat looking great. Like that to me, you know. And then we're at today with like now like there's Vorons and there's these style. I get that Voron aren't like retail, you know, printers off the shelf. Like you have to put in the work to get the
you have to build it. No, you can't buy a Voron anywhere.
But I still think that, you know, with even Prussias and things like that, I'm just curious, like 4 years time from now, I can only imagine what the next thing will be like, where we'll be looking back at this stuff and being like, oh yeah, that, like, no way, like we use this thing now. It's exciting, man. Like I like, one of the big things, like I said, the channel started off as modding, video game modding stuff, and I loved it. I was really, really into it. I felt like I hit a ceiling where I learned the majority of what I wanted to learn, and then it was just a lot of the same over and over and over again, which I know that it's funny because we talked about some of the printers being very similar, but for me in 3D printing, it hasn't gotten to that point by a long shot. Like, because there's so many things between, you know, if I get bored of one thing, it's like, cool, let's talk about materials, let's talk about slicers, let's talk about, like, there's so many ways that you can go, but this space, and not even talking about whatever's going up in the industrial $100,000 machines, but like just in our space and the sub a couple $1,000s and sub that, it's incredible to see like what's happened over the years. And you've said, I mean, yourself, like also the machines coming from the Voron team, it was like a machine or two machine, and now there's 5 different machines with all sorts of like different spin-offs and stuff. Like it's just insane, man. Like it's really cool.
It's definitely in some regards we're at a lot of points of diminishing returns. Hot ends, for example, like let's be honest, a V6 with a titanium heat break and a big heater block and a copper nozzle with a CHT, it is perfectly fine still. It's still perfectly a fine hot end. But you know, we've got all kinds of, I think the biggest thing you're going to see in the next few years in 3D printing, it's not going to be, we're not going to be making better benchies. Because let's be honest, a very good benchy printed today is as good as a very good benchy from last year, is as good as a very good benchy from the year before. As long as you take the time to tune your slicer and your printer has decent part cooling and is mechanically sound, you can print a good benchy. I think the biggest thing you'll see in the next couple of years is ease of use features and quality of life features. You're going to see, like we've seen it already with ABL, with Input Shaper, with Revo, where now it's you know, you don't have to worry about ooze anymore, and you can swap the nozzle while it's cold. Like you're gonna see things be simpler, more capable, and less frustration inducing, because you'll see a lot more. It just works. It'll be able to compensate. It'll be able to there'll just be less issues, and it'll be a lot easier for people coming into it that will be able to go 5 years now. Back in my day, I had to go and adjust the bed level with screws, and they'd be like, "Grandpa, go sit down." Like that's what I want it to be. I want it to be, you know, 5 years from now, when we say, "Oh yeah, we used to have to manually level the bed," I'd be like, "Why would you do that?" I push a button and it just starts printing and it calibrates everything automatically. Like, why would you do that? Like, why?
You did a really good.
Did you have to like rub the filament between your hands to melt it as it was coming out of the nozzle? Like I think that's going to be the thing
too, though. Repeatability is big, which also comes with better parts. Because like the statement you made about, you know, you could get a good benchy 3, 4, 5 years ago. You absolutely could, and yes, you would take some tuning and stuff like that. Printers to me have gotten much more repeatable. Like with a lot of machines, even low end ones, as long as I've done my homework and looked at them, done some printing, like 3D printing is quite a bit more repeatable, which is also due to now that we use aluminum frames, they're stiffer, there's more, you know, again, mesh bed leveling, stuff like that. But repeatability is also huge because, yes, I was able to get good prints even 7 years ago. Could I get good prints over and over and over again for a week straight? You know, like some of the early framed machines felt like if I breathed on them wrong, like all of a sudden my bed's out of whack. And you know, so I think, but yeah, ease of use and like, I was talking about, I haven't done a video on the Revo. I've got a couple of them, but I was talking the other day on stream that like there's been such good technical analysis done that I think if I were to approach it, it'd be
same here. Like, I had a whole plan for what I was going to do with the Revo, and then Tom's video came out and pretty much had half the stuff I was going to do. So
Stefan did an insane job.
They did very good videos. So what I'm going to do is probably, I was in the Revo beta, the last Revo beta, so I've been using them for almost a year now. So I'm probably just going to do like a recap of, after a year of using them, what do I think about them? And honestly, I think for like anywhere from like 80 to 90% of people who do 3D printing, the Revo is the perfect hot end, because it's basically idiot proof as long as you can't mount it wrong. And you don't have to worry about ooze. As long as you screw it in till you can't screw it in anymore, it'll print. And you hook up the wires right. Like it is in the flow rate. I know a lot of people, I swear speed benchies will be the death of us, because so many people are chasing speed benchies now and you don't need to.
It's not the majority though, man. It's not.
No,
I
but
mean,
I've seen people with enders, people with stock enders worry about flow rate. And I'm like,
gotcha. Yeah.
You don't need to be worried. Are you printing with like a 1.2 millimeter CHT nozzle? No.
Yeah.
And you don't need to worry about, you don't need a high flow hot end. Like,
yeah, the thing for me with Revos is that if I was going to approach it in a video, it would be more from like just a general my point of view thing. Like for the people that don't want necessarily a technical analysis breakdown, they're just like, hey, is it good or not? And for me, the fact of the matter is, I don't really care to be able to hot swap or quick swap nozzles very quickly. I don't get clogs very often, knock on wood, but I mean, I've got enough print hours under my belt to say like, I just don't get a lot of clogs. Like the filament has gotten much better. The consistency or the tolerances are much finer. So you're not getting these massive weird extrusions on them. For me, not that I wouldn't swap a bit more knowing how easy it is, like maybe it would be like, huh, now I do swap a bit more. For me though, it's the idiot proofness that you described, where it's that, yes, I have swapped lots of nozzles in my time 3D printing, and 99% of the time it goes well. I have broken one heat break on a hot end that wasn't a standard one. It had a much thinner wall, and I was tired. I tightened it a little bit too tight, thing just came right off. And I also have had 1 or 2 printers over the years where it's a slow drip, where the heat break meets the heat sink, there's a tiny bit of gap, and PTG, it's always freaking PTG. Somehow finds that gap.
You want a tip? You got some Vorons now. Just stop printing PTG.
I still like a PTG a lot for different reasons, like a little bit of the flexibility, and also I don't use it very much for that, but like PTG does have some really good chemical resistance properties about it. But the thing for me is that getting rid of any margin of error is incredibly important to me. Like I no longer have to worry about, hey, take this thing and make sure you tighten it to, you know, whatever spec, which I haven't even used specs. I've always just used a spanner wrench or some kind of a wrench and just hand tightened it, you know. But all I'm saying is even if that removes just 1 out of 100 accidents, it's worth it, dude. It's super, like we no longer, like the conversation of did you tighten it correctly or did you have a leak at your heat break, for that to never be a conversation again, I'm totally cool with that. I'm very cool with moving on from that. So yeah, I do think not only, again, the high flow thing, I get it. I think it's cool. It's not a huge concern to me. I would only do it for just the fun of it, as like, ooh, that was fun, but like not a practical type thing. For me, it's just reliability and repeatability. That's what I want. If I tell the printer to print the thing, I would like the thing to come out and with a minimal effort as possible. So E3D to me is a major, like, when I got into 3D printing back then, they were one of the companies where I looked at and was like, I like this company. They're small, they're personable, yet they are very much for the people and for 3D printing for everyone. So this next generation, yes, there's much more community pool, is a lot more community in the pool now than it was when I first was looking at hot ends in 2014. But like the fact that they're around and still innovating and they have this next thing, which is very unique, it's exciting, man. I think it's super exciting.
The next 4 years, I think, in 3D printing are going to be pretty. You're going to see a lot of changes, I think, and I think. I think the companies that are kind of like there already, you're going to see like solidify. I think you're going to see I think we're going to see a point where a lot of people that were just kind of hanging on, and like, how do I put this? I think in the next 4 years, the landscape, you'll see a lot of same faces, and some faces will just not be here anymore.
Yeah.
So
it's been like that all along. I mean, you know, at one point the ANET A8 was popular, and everybody loved it.
How's doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And even lulzbot, like lulzbot isn't what lulzbot was.
Lulzbot is the same name, the same colored filament, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not, nothing, I mean, the people aren't the same, the demographic of machine they're doing, the whole major power to the open source that they push, like it's a different, again, it's a very different thing. And there's a lot of other, I'm sure that my brain is slipping right now, but there's definitely other manufacturers that have fallen to the wayside. It's unfortunate, but like it's kind of the way it is. Like more competition makes it more difficult. Smaller piece of the market. Look at Ultimaker and Makerbot. They've realized it, and they're now in union with each other. So.
Okay, so actually we're coming up at 9 o'clock, so I think we probably should wrap it up pretty soon here. So what I'll do is we got 3 minutes here till 9, so I'll leave the contest open till 9. So I guess we'll do the wrap up now with you, Daniel.
Cool.
So. I didn't plan on any of this. So thank you for coming out. I hope you had some fun.
I did.
We'll do this again in the future, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool, man.
That was fun.
Thanks.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I know we didn't get to everyone's questions. The plan was to basically do like kind of half and half, but I knew what would happen because me and Daniel spoke for a little bit the other night, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're just gonna go down a topic, and we're just gonna go, and it'll be 2 hours later, and then we'll look down and be like, oh wait, we're streaming right now, and that is exactly what happened, which I was okay with.
Sorry about that, but yeah, thanks for sharing the floor with me. And I know we initially talked about this a couple months ago, and I'm stoked that it finally happened. It was a lot of fun. I again appreciate what you do, what you've helped out with, and I would love to at some point or another come back and maybe just answer questions or whatever it is, you know, whatever sort of format you think is appropriate. But yeah, thanks again, and everybody have a great night. Am I hanging up? How is this working? Are you kicking me?
I will leave you on the call, and so we can chat after, but I'll mute you.
Okay.
And then I'll pull to the main screen, and then we'll do all the draws and everything, because I gotta get my desktop unscrewed because all my windows are all screwed up from scenes. So
cool.
So again, I'll talk to you after the stream, and
sounds great.
Thank you for coming out.
Bye,
Cheers.
everybody. Hit the smash button. Like the smash button.
Okay. Ooh, I think we're good there. So we are good. So let me just get rid of that. Let me import this up here, because I know you guys want to win some stuff. So let me pull up Wheel of Names and unscrew up my screen. So not that one. Desktop. Nope, nope, nope. Screen. There we go. There we go. So these aren't you guys. So you have until now to enter, which is now too late. So we have 514 entrants. Let me pull those names there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, if you have not, before I draw the names here, what everyone is going to do is you're going to go into the description. There's 3 links for ModBot, for Daniel. His 2 YouTube channels. He has one channel where he does videos, and then another channel where he live streams, and then he also has a Twitter. If you have YouTube, which I'm assuming you have YouTube if you are here today, you are going to go to those channels and you are going to subscribe. Do this now, because we got some time, because I'm running Google Chrome and it takes a minute to copy 500 names. And then also follow him on Twitter. Give him a shout out. He was an awesome guest today. That was fun. Is this one of the best streams? Every stream is the best stream when you guys are here. Except for that one stream, and we don't talk about it. Am I still going? I am. I'm doing the draw now. ModBots, we're done the interview portion. We're just doing the draw, and then I'm going to go figure out dinner, because I am starving right now. So, you know how it be. I am going to need some numbers. The numbers, Mason, what do they need? I need a number between, how long? We went for 3 hours, and we have 300 people. I am not going to ask for a number between 1 and 300, but I'll do a number between 3 and 30. I need quit putting numbers down. You guys are jumping the gun. You jumping the gun. If you put a number down, you're banned, or at least disqualified. 3 and 30. I don't know. I'm just going to pick a number. 5. Yeah, let's go with 5, because you guys jumped the gun and you ruined the numbers. Oh, I don't. Here, let me main overlay. Why don't I have main overlay? You guys jumped the gun, so we're going to shuffle it 5 times. 3, 4, 5, and then just because I'm going to shuffle it 1 more. Okay. Let this roll. I forgot I had music playing. It's muted, and it's super loud because I had to turn the volume up so you could hear ModBot there. Ow, my ears. Congratulations, Grotem Bodum. Groti Boeing. Congratulations, person. You won. So let me grab your info here. So you will get an email from me after the stream here with how to collect your prize. So congratulations. There we go. Yeah, so we're going to end that there. So I hope you enjoyed the stream tonight. The plan was to go for 2 hours, but obviously we ran long. But I'm sure you guys aren't complaining there. He's a Dutchie. Groat equal big and boom boom. So his name's Big Boom. Big Boom. Big bada boom. Bada boom. Big bada boom. I'm gonna watch Fifth Element now. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the stream tonight. Thank you again to ModBot for showing up, for being a guest on the show tonight. I hope you enjoyed the interaction there. Again, these aren't planned as like interview streams. It's more just, you know, talking shop about 3D printing, kind of giving people a chance to meet others who are in the community and learn about everyone and just kind of go into topics and just kind of have fun for a couple hours. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you visit his channels. Links are in the description. Support his channels. If you want to help support me and the content I create and the things I do, I have links in the description as well. I would not be able to do the things I do without your continued support. So for those that became members of the channel tonight or donated to the channel, I do thank you. I do appreciate you. You allow me. I would not be able to do it without you. And if you do want to help support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. It helps a lot and for what I do. Tomorrow will be the Saturday night stream where we recap the Micron build. I have a few little things to do off stream to wrap that up. And then, yeah, that will be it for next week. We're going to see, because I'm going to be going out on adventures next week. So hopefully, potentially, I might do a stream from Rapid TCT Detroit. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I don't know what time it will be. But if I do one, stay tuned. We'll see. So, enjoy the rest of your weekend, be safe out there, and wash your hands. Cheers. Where are my buttons ended? Oh, there they are.